Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep. It is caught for the touchdown. Corey Davis.
What does he do? Attacks leverage. If he's outside leverage, he doesn't want you to beat him outside. So stem towards him, hold him outside, stab outside. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns him. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Long, fast, how he approaches the game, how dedicated he is to football. He's ridiculously good, man. You have to be ecstatic.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are listening to another episode of Jets X Factor or Blitz, and you hear my dog barking in the background. Quickly, before I shut him up, I'm outside because there is some. Hey, Grover, shut up, buddy. But no, I have some contractors in my house, so I got to do it outside unless you're gonna hear hammering the whole time. Hopefully, don't hear my dog the whole time. I'm about to lock him inside. But Nania, while I shut him up, I can hear you. What's going on, man?
Not too much. This has been a very uneventful week for Jets football. Another ho-hum loss. Not a ton to talk about. No, this is as hyped as I've ever been after a Jets win. Anyone who listened to the newest episode of my podcast, I put my reaction in the beginning, my live reaction to the whole comeback, and I was losing my mind. I should have been put in an asylum after that.
Yeah, Nani, I feel like we almost have to pull that up, but I guess I'm not going to force you to do it. But it was pretty great. I don't know. So I was going to ask you, were you more excited for that win, or were you more excited for the Raiders loss? Because there was also a video or a sound clip of you with the Raiders loss where you absolutely freaked out. So
I think this surpassed it. That was probably, which is sad, but that was probably near the top of the list prior to this one, the Raiders loss. Which is, I don't even want to think about that. But this one I think was past it for sure.
Yeah, again, I apologize. So I'm outside. If you hear any hammering, any nail guns, any dogs barking, I apologize. It's just the only way I can do this stream. As you guys know, I'm going to Italy tomorrow, and I have some contractors knocking out some walls in my house. So this is the only way I could do it. So if you have to deal with the dog barking, I apologize. It just is what it is at this point. But yeah, it's obviously really exciting now. And I was like, the last stream I was thinking about, I was like, do I really want to like binge a film review, not sleep, get it done, do a live stream? Like, nah, if they're gonna lose, I'm not gonna put all that work into it. And then they won. I'm like, shit, I really gotta grind on Monday. So I literally just finished recording the film show, which should be out. It was about 2 hours and 40 minutes going over a lot of those plays. But yeah, it's obviously really exciting. And I think it's the biggest not upset victory, but the craziest victory the Jets have had probably since the Monday Night Miracle. And I know that the Monday Night Miracle was a larger gap that they covered to get back into the game. But I think that the chances of this game are actually lower, right? Because I think I know it's 99.9% chance they had the Browns of winning, but I think the Jets is actually like 0.08. So it's actually less than 99.9% chance of losing. So what are your thoughts on that versus the Monday Night Miracle? Because we didn't get to see the Monday Night Miracle, but it was a game where I was at my buddy's house. You met Tom, the kid who's at the games with me, the bald guy, and I was just about to leave, and I'm like, I can't watch the game on my phone. And while I'm driving, so like, you know what? There is still technically a chance. So I'm going to watch the game and just see what happens. Big play to Corey Davis happens. Holy shit. Onside kick happens. Holy shit. And then obviously they come back, but I got to shut him up again. So again, you just have to ignore me for a little bit. And this one, I got to figure this out. I don't know what he's barking at, but go ahead, Donnie. I can hear you.
All right. I guess I'll hold it down. So for me, yeah, I mean, I can't compare to the Monday Night Miracle. I think I was 1 when that happened. So, but I think and there were also some other crazy comebacks in the NFL that happened on Sunday. The Cardinals were down 20-0. The Dolphins were down 21, I think. But I think what made this one different is just how quickly it happened. I mean, I know there are a lot of fans who I heard, turned off the game and didn't see most or all of it. So it's a game that only could have happened with terrible mistakes by the other team. So, thankfully the Browns did what they did, scoring that touchdown, blowing the onside kick, blowing that coverage to Corey Davis. But yeah, I mean, first, I guess to start off, when Chubb scored that touchdown, I mean, you still figure it's over, but you definitely thought at that moment, like, okay, I guess our offense is going to get the ball back. Then after that, the busted coverage happens, which is great. But even at that point, you're like, okay, you still got to get the onside kick. I don't think I've ever seen the Jets recover an onside kick. Maybe I'm forgetting a vague one somewhere in there that I don't remember, but I don't remember them recovering one. So that happens. Then at that point, all the momentum is on our side. And the way the offense played in this game, they're moving it pretty well. Pretty much the only times, the only reason they didn't score, more than the 17 they had pre-comeback was the first drive, the Tyler Conklin call, which was clearly wrong. And then they had the strip sack in the red zone. So they should have had more than 17. But it was a good offensive day. So the Jets get the ball back in prime position and with plenty of time. And you were confident that they were going to drive that thing and score it. So they got down there, we're moving it pretty easily, back to back. Then you get to 15 yards away, had back-to-back incompletions. And then at that point, it's kind of in the balance. You only think you get 2 more shots there. Then third down, they strike and they make the extra point, which was not a guarantee. Zerline missed one last week. Then they come back, and I was nervous after that first Brissett scramble. When he started taking off, I was like, okay, that's fine. But he just kind of kept going and was getting all these yards that you didn't expect. And at that point, they still had a timeout. There was 12 seconds left. So completion middle of the field, 10, 15 yards. They're right in field goal range to win that game. Cade York had a 58-yard winner last week. It's just every single thing that had to broke right. And starting with the missed extra point, which I didn't even mention, but that was huge as well.
Yeah, I actually did a breakdown on the mixed extra point and why it was missed, which I've never done before. Why I believe it was missed. I don't pretend to be a kicking expert.
That's my alley. I'm the one who posted the Braden Mann highlight video.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's another guy who bounced back, and we'll go through position group by position group. We'll say hello to some people in the chat. While I do that, Nani, again, feel free to pull up that intro because you already played it on CYJ. Now we got to see your face while you're playing it. But the intro to the CYJ podcast this week was great, and I got the extended version sent to me, which was also even better. But that was great. But again, I don't know how many people are going to be here during a Tuesday afternoon stream, but I couldn't not talk to you guys after a win like that and go through the game. But what's up, Chris, Hawk, Koopa Scoopa? There's people talking about trading Zach. That's absolutely not going to happen. But why don't just hit that from the top? When Zach Wilson is healthy, completely healthy, he's playing Nani. There's absolutely no chance that Flacco is going to be the quarterback. It's so funny that people go from wanting to bench Flacco for White or Streveler to the next week wanting Flacco to start. And I know obviously probably some of these people are joking, but there's legitimate people out there who are like, hey, just play Flacco until they lose and then play Zach. This season's all about Zach. Flacco's not the future. He's playing immediately when he gets back to being 100% healthy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you still have to look at the whole body of work because you can't forget that the first game he was awful. Joe Flacco was. Like, you broke it down on film. The numbers are pretty clear. Regardless of the 300 plus yards, it took him over 60 dropbacks to get there. So he's not efficient at all. Terrible first game, but then he bounces back this game, plays pretty well. I would say he was above average to good. But the first game still happened, and we'll see what he does, this week. But either way, there's almost nothing Flacco could have done to hold on to the starting job when Wilson returns. Even if the Jets were undefeated and he was great, I think it would probably still be Wilson's job because you just, for the sake of the future of the team, you have to evaluate him and see what he has. It's Wilson's job when he comes back.
Yeah, and there were still plays that Flacco missed. Like he missed Wilson in the end zone. He missed Wilson deep. Obviously, it would have been a really tough throw. Like it was hashed to opposite numbers, and like he had to throw 55 yards. But it's a throw that Zach Wilson can make where Wilson had to slow down and he got forced out of bounds. He had multiple misses on the sideline. Like he wasn't a stud all game, but he executed, and like you said, he was kind of okay until the last drive. Where can I acknowledge that? Would Zach Wilson have won it there? Maybe not. Maybe he would have forced the ball where Joe Flacco was really cool, all that stuff about just dumping the ball off, letting Michael Carter get 6, 7, 8 yards running out of bounds, or Conklin or whoever it was. So yeah, he was really poised on that last drive. But you're not going to not play your second year quarterback who you still have a lot of questions about and who could still be a very good quarterback for a 37-year-old Joe Flacco who's not going to take you anywhere. Like, yeah, he's a solid backup, but nothing more than that. Like, he's not a starter in this league. And he's a guy who really relies on, if he has no protection, like we saw at the Ravens, there's nothing he could do. So this was a game where they protected better, and we saw what he could do with a clean pocket, and he's solid, but we're not going to bench Zach Wilson. It's not even like a Jimmy Garoppolo where, okay, the guy's like 32 years old, where maybe you can have a future with him. Like, it's not even that. So I think people are being a little bit crazy with that. Again, I'm not sure that people in the chat are legitimately saying that, but yeah, I know there are people out there 100%. I think Joe Beningo is one of them, which is ridiculous, but why people listen to WFAN is beyond me. But Ryan Gallagher, what's up? Mike, what's up? Dom C, safe to assume we will see Huff active for the Bengals game. So again, we'll run through position group by position group. But first, I want to just hit everybody in the chat because I appreciate everybody being here on a Tuesday at whatever time, 1:18. But what do you think about this? And hello, Dom C. But is Huff going to be active? Because that was one of those surprising scratches for obviously the Ravens game. And then we heard, okay, it's because the Jets want some more heavy bodies because the Ravens run attack. Same thing with the Browns. We assumed he'd be inactive. He's inactive. Is Huff going to see time this week against the Bengals?
Yeah, I think there's a shot because the only real justification for him being inactive is what you just said. You're playing the Ravens, you're playing the Browns, maybe the two most dangerous rushing teams in the league. So, Huff is, I think, a very good pass rusher, but run defense doesn't bring a ton there. So I guess it makes sense with their D-line being so deep that he was inactive. They want to lean towards the size of a Michael Clemens. So I think he will be brought up. But who do you think if he does come up? Like, who are you subbing out for him? Do you think it will be Clemens or somewhere else? Do you think they'll kind of open that spot up?
Yeah, that's tough. So I'm trying to think about, like, obviously you can't do it with the running backs. You're not going to do it with the receivers. They seem to like Jeff Smith quite a bit. None of the offensive. Yeah, I guess it would have to be like a Clemens, right? In terms of, because he hasn't produced much in the regular season. He had an exciting preseason, but now it's time for like big boy football, and he's not necessarily there yet. So I would rather have Huff as a pass rusher than Clemens. And I know a lot of people are obsessed with Clemens and the whole mantra and all that stuff that he carries. But Huff right now is the better pass rusher one-on-one, and you're going against the Bengals team and offensive line that's not necessarily the strongest, and they're obviously struggling quite a bit right now, just with communication and individually. So you want the better pass rusher there. I know a lot of people are going to hate that because they love Clemens, but yeah, I would agree with you on that one. But Pug Life overreacting to one loss and one win is the Jets fan way. Yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. We're going to live and die with the wins. You just got to try to be level headed. Obviously the Jets aren't going to the Super Bowl now, and realistically, like, we're going to talk about the game and really get into, again, like, position group by position group. At the end of the day, if Nick Chubb takes a knee or Kareem Hunt doesn't run out of bounds 2 plays in a row, the Jets probably lose that game. So it was a little bit of luck, and there are still plenty of flaws with the defense. With the tackling was absolutely dreadful. The coverage, Lamarcus Joyner was terrible again. Maybe not as bad as week 1, but there are some plays I just broke down where he has some inexcusable coverage. So there were still flaws, but yeah, people are going to overreact to one game. That's just how it is. Again, I am actually outside this time with shades on, so people can't make fun of me that I'm wearing shades inside. So what's up, Yoshi? What's up, Rob? Spin Max Dave, amazing comeback. Yeah, it was the most improbable comeback in the last year. Stats got 2,000 and how many games?
Yeah, it was the first time a team came back from 13 plus in under 2 minutes. I think it was 2,229 times in a row. A team had not been able to do that. So yeah,
that's quite a few years. So obviously, again, the Browns did choke, but at the same time, the Jets did still have to execute a really well executed onside kick. So credit to Will Parks and Hardy for that. And just going to that, like, what were you thinking in that moment? And I was nervous for the field goal too, like the extra point after. Like, everybody's like, oh, we won all this stuff. I'm like, dude, we just missed the extra point literally last week. Like, we got to chill out a little bit. And then once he made it, I freaked the hell out. But like, then that onside comes, and obviously you're not expecting it. But when it does, and you see it rolling, and it's rolling at a really good angle just to get past that 10-yard mark that it has to travel. And then you see the collision between Parks and Cooper, and you see the ball leak out. And then Marcel Harris, like, I don't know what he did, but he didn't grab the ball. And I freaked out because I thought they had a chance. And I thought Marcel Harris fucked it up for lack of a better term. And then obviously Hardy grabs it, and you see the excitement on the Jets sideline. I had a better view than I did, but like, what was going through your mind on that play?
No, I mean, I think that was as good as you can execute an onside kick. I feel like it had all the elements. First of all, it splits, the two Browns defenders up front, so you take them out of the mix, and just the way it bounced, it kind of dies right in front of Cooper, so it doesn't get all the way to him, and it settles in that spot where Parks was able to get to it first. Was perfect. And, there is a little bit of luck to it, but I think, just the, like I said, the accuracy of how he put it between those two Browns players up front. The spin on it was great, just to give it the right amount of velocity and just the ability to give the Jets a chance. And then everyone else just did a really good job rallying to it. Because those two Browns guys up front, they were focused on blocking. Parks was able to come right in, and it was just a one-on-one with him and Cooper, and Parks beat him to it. And then from there, Hardy came in from the backside, and he was able to be the one to come up with it. But the Jets had the numbers, so you could – watching it live, I think I definitely thought very quickly there's a good chance the Jets are going to get it because they just had the advantage over there. And Cleveland did still have – there are some videos out there of, higher quality, slow motion looks, really close up. And after Parks missed on it, and he had a good shot. He was laying down. It was just him. He had one hand on it, but he couldn't get it. After that, I think there was another Browns player who did have a good shot at it and then missed it. But then from there, Hardy comes in and gets it. And the Jets did have the numbers. But it was just the sideline that I think sold it to me because it was right in front of the sideline. And they all were very convinced. And obviously, they're biased, but they were 100% sold the way they were reacting to it.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson freaked out.
At all. You could see his vertical when he's just on the sideline. He's like, he jumps above the ref's shoulders.
And at that point, like, I don't know about you, but I didn't breathe for like the whole drive because at that point, like you're assuming that they're going to score a touchdown because of all the momentum, but we're still the Jets, and like that we get to, what is it, 1st and 10 at the 15 or the 16? I think it's a 16
15,
actually. 15, and he misses Elijah Moore on an out route where Elijah Moore could have had either a touchdown or easily the ball at the 3-yard line and running out of bounds. So he threw a bad ball there. I think it was low. So I got nervous there. And the second down, he almost gets sacked. I'm like, dude, 2 more plays, like the Jets, 3rd and 10, come on. And then obviously it happens and I freaked out. Obviously you have your reaction video. I licked my friend's head. I don't care to say that. He's bald and we were rubbing the bald head for good luck with him and Zerline with the kick and everything else. And I ended up licking a sweaty head. It was quite gross. But it tasted like victory. So it was great. And then, like you said, like you have the Jacoby Brissett, like the run, and they're down at like, what was it, the 45-yard line? Like they're on 45. So they only needed like, 20-ish yards to kick a field goal. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe it's 25 yards, but they still had a timeout, and I got nervous as hell there. And then, like, if you actually watch that play and I broke it down, they got lucky. Ashton Davis did what he did because Reed was beat to the inside there. I don't know why Reed played the receiver the way he did because it's not like he was bracketed. It's not like they were bracketing Cooper. Basically Ashton Davis just dropped to, and Salah said it, he dropped to where the field goal marker was, or they thought he could make it from. He read the left side where the passing strength was. Everybody pretty much broke outside or not towards him. So then he looked towards the quarterback. As soon as the quarterback started to load up to throw the ball, he broke, but Reed was beat inside. So if you watch that replay, it was sketchy. So they really could have, they were centimeters or inches away, or just one guy breaking in from the strength of the passing strength towards a loss. So what were you thinking there too? Like, I think you already mentioned it, but I don't know if you saw that play in detail. I'm sure you did, but they're lucky Ashton Davis was where he was, which I don't think I've ever said in my entire life.
Yeah, it's definitely something we never thought we'd be saying. Ashton Davis sealing one of the greatest comebacks in the history of this team. But yeah, Jacoby Brissett played a really good game, and this was a rare mistake for him to come through in that moment, giving the game away. But I did look at it a few times, and you're right. Like there was a window there, and it definitely could have happened. So it would be so cruel if the Jets made that entire comeback. We witnessed all of it for them to give it right back at the end. But Ashton Davis coming through, not something we'd ever think we'd say on this.
One rep, one pick, and then I think it was one of the receivers that tried to punch the ball out. I don't know if he tried to like draw a penalty. I don't know what he was doing. He's punched out. He's probably just pissed that their team gave up 14 points to the Jets in a minute and 55 seconds.
And then he kneeled it. I think it was Peoples-Jones, maybe. I don't know who it was. But he was just like punching at it.
Yeah, I think it was, and it's great too because like Donnie, like we've obviously been covering the Jets for quite a few years now, and since we've really gotten into like the thick of it, it's been like the Bowles years and the Gase years, and even like the Izek years when I was starting to really like baseline level, and we haven't seen a September win since September. I don't know what the date was, but the Lions home opener, which by the way, comparing the bigness or the feeling after this game, would you say like this is the most excited you've been after a win, or the most exciting win you've seen as a Jets fan?
I mean, it's definitely up there, but
Mm-hmm.
the Detroit win was exciting because it was Darnold's debut. He played pretty good, and they blew the doors off the Lions, and every phase looked really good. So
Mm-hmm.
that definitely was exciting. I remember being very amped up after that, but definitely probably since then, this is the most exciting win, because any win after that, I guess besides Denver and the Colts that year, and when they were still kind of in it, any win from 2019 through last year they were pretty much out of it by that point. So this is their first meaningful win in terms of, okay, we're still kind of in the mix, since those early 2018 wins. So I think since then it's definitely the most exciting.
Yeah, pretty much past September in 2019 and 2020, we were rooting for losses. So like obviously we were watching the game, like, yeah, you kind of want them to win, but in reality, like you'd sign up for the loss because we wanted the draft picks and things like that. I'm not afraid to admit that, but yeah, and people always thought, like, people when they mention this game, like terms of like how it felt after, a lot of people kind of bypass the Lions game, but I completely agree with you. Like you have a rookie quarterback. It's on Monday Night Football. He throws a pick on his first play, and you're like, what? Like really, dude? It's a pick six actually, right? So we got all upset, and then they come to blow him out. I was like, what was the final score? Like 42 to like 21 or something like that.
48-17, I think it was 48-17.
Yeah, so we were really excited after that one. But in terms of like, again, this will never happen again. Like we're never going to see anything like this for the rest of our lives. And if it does, I can't handle it. I told my friend, I'm like, it's almost like bad. Like the Jets are winning. Like I'm going to lose years off my life, like with close competitive games, because we watch so many blowouts where like out of the third quarter, you're kind of getting like annoyed, like, whatever. I can't imagine being in games like that all the time.
No, I totally agree, because I've kind of forgotten what it's like to be in these kind of games, because we've been in so many of the majority of the games we watched the last 3 years were evaluation games where you're just kind of watching, seeing, does a young talent play well? Who is going to be part of this team? Who's not going to be part of this team? Much more so than being invested in the result. But getting back to these games where it's like, you're hanging on every single play it's what being a fan is supposed to be about. And like you said, there's good and bad to it. It's exciting when it goes your way, but it also is very, very stressful. And I need to work on my game watching, because I just overreact to everything. Like after the second drive and the Browns scored, it's like, oh, here we go. This is a blowout. And like, everything.
That's not you, Nani. That's because you're a Jets fan. That's just the Jets fan in you. Like literally, it was Gase's. I think it was Gase's second year. And the first kickoff, we bring it back to like the 40-yard line, and there's like a legal block in the back or holding. Like,
the Bills game.
It's over. Season's fucking over. Like you could feel that as a Jets fan. And this team, like even in week one, when you were there, we went to the tailgate and all that, which was fun. And like even in that game, and while it wasn't a good game in any sense, I didn't feel like, I feel like the Jets, and it's almost like cliche to say this, but like they legitimately beat themselves in that game. Like they didn't get out talented in that game. Like they were with the Ravens, talent wise, but unfortunately, when you have all the mistakes the Jets had, it's going to lead to a blowout loss, which they got blown out, is really disheartening. But again, you watch the film, you're like, okay, they can hang with this team if they didn't make the mistakes, which you assume is going to happen with, a lot of new players and a lot of young players and a relatively young coaching staff. But then you go to this game, and again, it's like before the game, it's not a good matchup for the Jets. Like you have one of the best edge rush duos in the entire league. You have Fant, who struggled last week, and you have Max Mitchell, who played decently well in his first game. But at the same point, like, what did he struggle with in college? It was power. Jadeveon Clowney is power. Like that's what he is. So you have that, and then you have a rushing attack, which I was even more afraid of than the Ravens, because of how they get after you a little bit. They're more I know they're more outside zone, and they run some other stuff and traps and pin and pulls and all that stuff. But they're more of a downhill rushing attack where the Ravens attack the perimeter more. So I was worried about this rushing attack. And overall, I think they did a decent job until the fourth quarter. But I was really nervous for this game. And like you said, when I completely forgot on my when I was doing my film breakdown too. When they did that fake punt, it was 7-0 or 4. I think it was 4, or was it 14-0? I think it was 7-0.
It was
7-0.
The drive they tied on the touchdown.
Yeah, and on that play, like too, like you're almost at the 50-yard line. They just okay, yeah. So the Jets, they didn't score on their first possession. They kick it to the Browns. They drive it down our throats. We get to the 50-yard line. We punt, and like at that point, you're like, dude, like if they punt, they're going to drive down our throats again. It's going to be 14-0, 10-0, and it's just going to feel like it's over. But hell of a job by obviously Boyer and Bowles to have the balls to call the play that they did, leads to a touchdown, and then we compete throughout the first half. And then in the third quarter, we're competing again, and then the fourth quarter, the dam's kind of broke, where you hear about this rushing attack, and it's almost like playing Derrick Henry. Like, you can contain him for 3 quarters, but you have a tough time tackling guys like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the fourth quarter. And I know part of that was the fact that they try to strip the ball too when they were down. That added to the numbers. You can clearly see that on some plays. But yeah, I thought they were obviously heading to a loss again. I was just about to get into my car, and I figured, like, I tried to pull up my Xfinity stream or whatever, and I couldn't watch. I'm like, oh, dude, I have to at least watch it. I could have watched it from my car. But yeah, and then I stayed, and then it was obviously amazing. But let's get to the rest of the chat. Tell me if it's bothering you. I'll try to stop him, but it's hard to stop a puppy from barking when he's outside. So it is what it is. Verge Tibbs, what's up? KD, give me some workout motivation, my dudes. Finishing last sets. My motivation is usually negative, where I'm calling you a piece of shit and you're a pansy ass. So if you enjoy that stuff, then I can do it for you. Hey, stop, buddy. No. Okay, there you go. NJZ, he's still throwing an extra one in. I think you tried to super chat a question or a comment, but nonetheless, appreciate the $3 super chat. And then your chat to follow was fans want Zach Wilson to come in no matter how well Joe Flacco plays, because we need him. We need to see what we have in him, but shouldn't the coaches already know? They're paid to be experts and they see him every day. Nani, how would you respond to that question or that statement?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing about that is, if a guy's playing really well or poorly to an extreme level, I think you could see in practice, like, okay, this guy is not going to succeed or he's going to be a superstar. But the majority of it, I think you have to actually see them out there and play. And I think Zach Wilson is in that middle ground. He's had some great practices, some not so great ones. For the most part, I think this offseason was leaning towards the positive side, but you don't know until he gets out there. So I think that's the thing. You just have to actually see these guys play, unless it's atrocious and it's clearly not going to work, which I don't think Zach Wilson's anywhere near that. Yeah. Then you just have to let it play out.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had plenty of good, Clyde Gates out there and all those type of players who have been really good in practice and they don't perform when they're on the field. And it could be the same thing where there's guys who don't practice well, but when the lights turn on, they ball. And like, you'd think they would know about Garrett Wilson, but they played him 50% of the snaps or a little bit over in week 1.
Right.
And then look what happens in week 2. Like, there's just guys who perform when it's actually time to go. And there's a lot more pressure too. Like in practice, okay, you make a mistake, who cares? There's not people recording it. NFL Network's not talking about it. So he may ball out in practice. And last year, what did he do? He balled out in practice. And then, obviously the regular season was disappointing for the most part. So you have to see in the actual game. So they're going to figure out what he is. I'm hoping he plays after this week in Pittsburgh. And then you evaluate where you are after this year. I think you'd have to have a pretty catastrophically bad year for them to not roll with him in year 3. How do you feel about that, Nani? Like, how bad of a year would it take for, like, obviously I think you're going to probably reference draft position, like how high are you in the draft? Because if you're sitting there and it's Stroud or whoever and they're right in your laps and he absolutely sucked, okay, maybe you consider it. But if you finish because a team is good, you finish 14, 15, 16th in the draft positioning, and then you have to trade up from one of those guys, I can never see it happening. Again, I severely doubt it, but like, how bad would he have to be to actually move on from this guy in year 2?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors to it because, like you mentioned, the draft position. If you're number 1 in the draft and you have an opportunity to get one of the guys you mentioned, and Zach Wilson likely would have been a big part of the reason you're there, then I guess you're probably doing it, but you're probably not going to be near that. So it's going to be, do you have to trade up for a quarterback or something like that? So I don't know, unless he's, I guess, worse than last year. I don't know if he were the same as last year, which was pretty bad. If that's with taking the rookie curve out of it, he was pretty bad last year. If he was at the same level as last year and he's holding back a team that looks like it can win games, and maybe you have an opportunity to upgrade quarterback in some other way, then perhaps it's considered. I don't know. It's tough to put like a number on it or anything because you have to, see how it actually looks on the film, and then as the season plays out, because the numbers can be misleading, the win total can be misleading.
And we have no idea about the quarterbacks that are coming out either. Like, I remember, and obviously we're starting to, but like, I remember when Sam Howell was supposed to be a first-round pick, and so was Matt Corral, and people were like hyping them up. I remember I watched both Michael Carter and obviously Elijah Moore. I'm like, these quarterbacks are kind of balls. Like, I don't know why people are talking about them, and then they fell to whatever rounds they did. But and like for me, I don't know about you, and it depends, I guess, obviously on who's available and stuff like that. But I don't know if I could do another rookie quarterback. Like I'm at the point now where like get freaking, if it really comes to that, like get Lamar Jackson, like do something. Like I can't do another rookie. But let's not talk about that. It's positive vibes. Zach Wilson's around a good coaching staff, at least offensively, I believe. A really good team. So I'm not trying to worry about that now. There's so many games to go. And again, if Zach Wilson just could put performances together like he did against the Bucs game, like that's enough. Like he was very, very good versus the Bucs with guys like, Jeff Smith running out there and Tyreek Black and whoever else. Now you substitute that with Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and all these guys. He could be pretty damn good still. He has plenty of talent, and obviously people are kind of they're like off the Zach train because what did we see last of him? Like, obviously you could see how reactionary fans are. Like, we hate the Jets 1 week, week 2, the best team ever, we're going to win every game, we're going to the playoffs. So the last thing we saw of Zach was a pick, and a missed throw to Garrett Wilson. But you have to let him get his jitters out and all that stuff. And it's not an excuse. You obviously want him to perform, especially in the preseason when it's an easy throw and hit it. There's no pressure there really. But yeah, we'll see. Do you think he plays week 4, or like what is your feel on that? Because if anything, maybe Saleh does have some gamesmanship now where he's saying, okay, well, earliest week 4, and then Saturday, oh, he's playing, and the Steelers, you'd think they would prepare for it because they're an NFL team. But still, especially the way you've been seeing him at practice and the drills he's been doing, I believe he's been doing 7-on-7. So, do you think it is going to be Zach in week 4?
Yeah, I do think it is going to be week 4. Just, the fact that Saleh picked a specific date and mentioned the game, a couple weeks ago, and it seems like he's progressed pretty well. The brace is off. There's no protection at all on that knee. Looks like he's been moving pretty well. The fact that he was also listed as limited in practice, I think he's going to be back for the Steelers game. Maybe, they hold him, played extra safe for the, a home game the following week. But
against the Dolphins team, I think it'd be pretty tough.
Right. Yeah. And I think, which maybe we didn't expect before the season, but Dolphins are looking more tough than the Steelers right now. TJ Watt is out, so that definitely lessens.
Mitch Trubisky sucks.
That as well, which we did expect. But
yeah.
I think he'll be back for the Steelers. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe to Joe. Flacco looked poised, but there was a clear moments when you see the potential of Zach was there. Roll out. Yeah, the thing, and I agree with your statement there, but the thing with that throw to CD, which Flacco made a good decision. If you actually go back and watch the film breakdowns, again, they should be posted hopefully today or tomorrow. If you're subscribed, you'll see the whole thing. If you actually go back and watch that throw, when he's going to throw it, I don't know if it's his hip or his shoulder, but he actually gets contacted when he's going to rotate to throw that ball. So a lot of quarterbacks getting contacted there would not hit that, but at the same time, Zach would get there quicker, so he'd probably look up and throw it quicker than the defender would be there. And also on that play, you had Elijah Moore who ran. I forget, it was some type of out. I forget exactly what type of out it was. He was also up, and there's no way Joe Flacco could get the ball there. Like, while Joe Flacco has a decent arm deep, he doesn't drive the ball super well. Like, there are some balls that are floaters. He doesn't have a lot of heat on balls. So, yeah, there's a clear talent advantage. And like, people talk about, oh, well, why not roll Joe Flacco and all that stuff? You have to be able to run away for some people when you're rolling out. So you're really limiting the offense and the creativity you could have. And Zach Wilson's also a legitimate run threat. Like, it's not like you're going to play him like Lamar Jackson where you're trying to contain him. But at the same point, there's defenders who are going to have to respect him rolling out, and they're going to bite up a little bit. And there's going to be some guys open where you see Joe Flacco with 20 yards to run and nobody's going to bite on it because it's Joe freaking Flacco. But, and in terms of CD, rain and lack of protection, not a factor. I guess you're talking about Joe Flacco in week 1. 100% it was a factor. But I feel people are very black and white where, and I said this on just the film show I did, like, people like to blame either like one player, one position group, because it feels easier to blame one person. So everything else was great. Joe Flacco sucked. The offensive line sucked in week 1. That's just all it was. Blake Tomlinson played one of the worst games I've ever seen, and Joe Flacco was miserable as well. So it was both. 100%, but I'm not going to blame one or the other. Nixon Tegger, early stream. What's good, guys? Yeah, again, Italy tomorrow, so this is the only time I could do it. So I had to get this out today, which, by the way, also just did the 3-hour film show. Italy tomorrow, got a pack, doing this stream, and I'm doing Jets Talk 24/7 tonight, which I think at that point I'll be up for almost like 30 hours. So going to be awesome, but I'm not looking forward to talking to Ryan, and I think Green Bean and Matt will be there. So be there later for that. I'll talk to those guys. Love seeing special teams bounce back. Which I guess we won't hit on that right now. Can you believe it, guys? We finally earned a good commentator next week. Can't wait to hear Ian Eagle on the call. When's the last time Eagle has been on a call? Because
Yeah,
the Jets have got some shitty announcers, and Eagle's the best.
I don't remember the last game they had him. Like, when I think of him calling Jets games, I just think of 2015. Maybe 20. I think 2016 they had him, but after that, I don't know. So that definitely is a little sign of respect of what the Jets kind of have going. I can't take another Jay Feely game, that's for sure.
No, he's the worst. Like, it'd be like third down. He'd be like, yeah, the Jets really want to stop them here. I'm like, no shit, Jay Feely. Like, thank you for that information. They really want to stop them on third down. No, they should really let them run. Like, what are you talking about? I think we match up well with the Bengals and Italy. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about the game. Nani, obviously, feel free to hop off whenever. I don't know your schedule. This was impromptu for the most part, but I'll preview the Bengals game with Nani or without Nani later, at least a little bit. I haven't done a ton of research because I've been busy as hell, but nonetheless, let's see who else is in here. Steven Engel, I think I already said hello to you. Dwayne. Listen, I've been married for a few years. I've been dating my wife for like 11 years. That doesn't get me as excited as it used to. I get tired and want to sandwich and sleep. That would be small. But no, it is nice to talk about a Jets win for once. Like, we're so used to being miserable. And like, even when they do win, it's like, yay, we're 1-6. Yeah. Like, it's not that fun. Like, now we're legitimately competing. And the Browns, like, people just assume, oh, we're gonna beat the Browns. Jacoby Brissett's a good backup quarterback, one, and two, their roster is stacked. Like, there's a reason they've been a favorite to make the playoffs the last couple of years. They just couldn't get there with a guy like Baker Mayfield. So I wasn't just gonna assume a win, but it's still a good team. And a team who was close to the Panthers, yes, but you watch that game and it was blown coverages, and the end of the game that really got the Panthers back into it. You could see the clear talent difference, though. So you watch that game, you see the Jets legitimately compete with them. And now you're looking at, a game in the Bengals where, they're 0-2. They're struggling. Like, the Jets can legitimately beat the Bengals. And then the Steelers after that, they've been struggling. They just lost to a Pats team that isn't very good, in my opinion. I don't know what their week one was, but the Steelers are on a stacked roster. They got Mitch Trubisky.
The Bengals game.
Okay. Yeah. The Bengals. So they beat the Bengals. But their offense line's not. It's okay. Harris hasn't been doing as good. I'm afraid of a little bit. Deontay Johnson, their defense, Minka. Like, there's some guys on their team, but they're not a studly roster. They're not the Ravens. They're not the Browns, in my opinion. So you're looking at a Jets team who, realistically, even if we go 2-2, like 2-2 in the first four, if you win one of the next two games, like 2-2 in the first four, we would have signed up for that any day of the week a couple of weeks ago. And then you're looking at some games where the Packers aren't a juggernaut. Obviously they beat up on the Bears, but the Bears are the Bears. And the Broncos have lost to the Seahawks, and they almost lost to, the Texans. It's early in the season, but still, like, it's just exciting that we could actually maybe get 4 or 5 wins before the bye week. I would sign the dotted line for 4 wins before the bye week. Nani, would you? Because, like, after the bye week, you're looking at, and I know some teams are like better than we think necessarily. Like, the Lions are obviously pretty decent, at least. The Lions, the Jags, the Bears, these teams. So I'm on the dotted line right now. Would you sign up for 4 wins out of the first 9?
For sure. I think you even right now, like you said, there's been some change. Like, Detroit looks a little bit better, Miami maybe, but also going the other way, maybe New England not quite as good as you thought. So I think that post-bye stretch still looks more winnable than this first half. So 4-5 first half, I think that definitely puts it within reach to get 7-8 wins at the least, if you could really get your stride going. If Zach Wilson, improves post-bye kind of like he did last year, then and you can get maybe a 5-6 win streak going, then you can maybe think about this is too far ahead right now, but maybe you can start thinking about competing. But I guess I would take 4 wins pre-bye.
And it's crazy too, because like last week we would have said like, okay, I could live with 6 or 7. Now it's like, make the playoffs, and I think Jets fans deserve that, because like I predicted 8 and 9 before the season, and like after last week, I was like, I'm hoping for at least 7, but I was like at the minimum 6, because I put like $300 on the Jets over this year, and I need to at least hit that. But I think anything under 7 would still be disappointing for me. Like looking at this Jets roster and their schedule. And I think they can realistically hit that. And with that, like, I'm so excited to like, just the people who talk down to the Jets, like they have no talent on their team. Like, I get they have to prove it, but people talk about the Jets like they're the like scrubs of the NFL. They have absolutely no talent. teams walk all over us. Ravens fans at the stadium were chanting at us and all this shit, and Browns fans were chanting Jets suck and all this stuff. Like, I cannot wait for the Jets just like punch the NFL in the mouth. And even just winning 8-9 games is that to me, like, because a lot of people aren't expecting that from the Jets. 5.5 wins to me is bullshit, but hopefully they can get 7, 8, 9 and make the playoffs in the wild card and shut everybody up. That'd be great. So let's see. We had a question about Max Mitchell from Spin Max Dave. What's up, Spin Max Dave? Impression of Max Mitchell so far. Heard he's graded higher than Evans and Icky. I'm gonna throw that to you, Nania. One, because I don't know if he's graded higher than those guys. Maybe and two, just because.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what you think of him, because personally, for me watching him, I've been really impressed. Not in the sense that he's been amazing or anything like that, because he definitely had some mistakes in both games. But I was expecting him to be very bad, because I think it would be unrealistic to expect anything else. This is a 4th-round rookie from a mid-major school who, was supposed to be your 3rd-string tackle, essentially, considering, they signed Brown instead of letting him just take over for Becton. So for him to come in and be, I would say, below average the first 2 games is well beyond what I expected. And it's enough for the offense to function. And I think when you lose 2 starting tackles, that's the best you could hope for. And then projecting long-term, the fact that he can do that right now, especially against these opponents in Baltimore and Cleveland, is very, very promising regarding what he could develop into in time. But in this game, I thought it was a good game. I mean, he had the strip sack, which, was that a terrible play? Maybe not, because of the drop, and it was just kind of an unfortunate play. He did have on the game-winning drive when Flacco almost got sacked. That was Mitchell, so good job on Flacco for kind of bailing him out from that. But that was Garrett, and he faced Garrett a lot after Clowney left the game, because Garrett switched over to Mitchell's side. And he was not getting beat as often as you would think. He did have some good wins one-on-one with Garrett. So I thought this was a impressive game, and just in the sense that he held up. Again, he took some losses, but considering the circumstances, I think he's been impressive.
Yeah, it's all relative to expectation. Like if we sign Max Mitchell to a $10 million a year contract and he's playing like this, I'd be like, oh, this is a terrible signing.
Right.
But
yeah.
Considering he's a 4th-round rookie playing against one of the better pass rush duos in the NFL and a super complex defense in the Ravens in terms of like their blitz schemes and stuff like that, and he held up relatively well, is great. I think he was better this game than last game. I think the Ravens game, he might have been a little bit overrated by people. I think he was still pretty bad, but a little bit less bad than I thought he would be. So a slight tick up in the Ravens game. And this game, I thought obviously he got a ton of help. Like, you have to give credit to Mike LaFleur in terms of chipping, and all the things they were doing to help their tackles. But overall, he gave up the strip sack, which, listen, if Jadeveon Clowney wasn't a freak, he didn't have long arms, he wouldn't have hit that ball. Like, he was trying to push him up the arc. It is what it is. He gave up that, like you said, that pressure at the end of the game where Flacco threw it away, and a few others. But overall, he had a couple of really nice reach blocks. Like, I liked what Mitchell's been doing. And we're going to get asked about this, and I know I'm going to bring it up later anyway. But I saw this in the chat later. What's your feelings on, Dwayne Brown? Let's say week 6, he's back. Max Mitchell kind of maintains his level of play right now. Do you put in Dwayne Brown or do you not put in Dwayne Brown? And I think the thing that's kind of hard with it is the fact that, Saleh said he's being evaluated. That could be he's back week 5. That could be he's back in 3 years. Like, we don't know with Dwayne Brown. But, like, what is your general feelings on when Dwayne Brown comes back? Do you replace him, or is he just a $11 million backup?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a really tough decision to make, because I think you still expect Brown to be a better short-term player than Mitchell with the way Mitchell is playing right now. But is it enough to make up for the fact that the reps that Mitchell is getting right now could be valuable long-term? Because I think in terms of the O-line, more so than other positions, you want that short-term value, because this is a position that complements the quarterback, Zach Wilson, the most important player on your team. So you want that short-term impact, guys who can help you right now, because it supplements Wilson. But at the same time, if Brown is only marginally better than Mitchell, do you maybe lean towards keeping Mitchell so he can get these reps in, get a whole rookie season of starts, and build off that next year? Based on the way Mitchell's playing right now, I think Dwayne Brown is probably an average starter right now, maybe a little bit below. But coming back from an injury, maybe that knocks him down a few pegs. So it's tough, but I think right now I would lean towards putting Brown back in because I just think it's important for the offensive line to be as good as you can get it right now, regardless of long-term potential, because it complements Zach Wilson. But if Mitchell can play more so, and like you said, I think this Browns game was better. So if he can build off of this, especially once the opponents are not Myles Garrett and get a little bit weaker, then I think you could potentially consider it. So I lean towards Brown, but I think there's an opportunity. If Mitchell can improve, then maybe you do stick with him. What do you think?
I think I'm leaning more towards Mitchell, but with a really, really short leash. Because like it's a weird spot that they're in because like, yeah, you probably would want to play Mitchell, but at the same point, if like you just play Mitchell, if let's just say, I don't know, Jimmy Garoppolo is your cousin, your quarterback. And again, I'm coming off of midnights and I haven't slept like already like 20 hours. So forgive me. But nonetheless, yeah, I think if you have a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, it's a really easy decision. You play the young guy, you let him develop. But the fact that it's Zach Wilson and you want him to have the absolute best team around him for his development, it makes it a little bit more tricky. I would say it's Mitchell, but with a really, really short leash. And part of that is the fact that it's not only Mitchell who's going to be coming out. Listen, now you have to move Fant back to the right side again. Yeah. Where he's got comfortable after weeks of play. Well, and he's going to be better than he has been the last couple of weeks. So I'm pretty convinced of that. I don't think he's as bad as he has been. And I do think changing sides is a part of that. And yes, he did play left tackle before, but still you train all off season or most of the off season for right tackle. And then you get switched to left tackle for left tackle and you can switch to right tackle and back to left tackle. It's a lot harder than people think it is. So it's not like, oh, he's played there before. He should be comfortable. You have to get used to it all over again. So yeah, let's see. Harrison Weaver. I watched the tape and Quinnen keeps playing with really well, but we need a better pass rush in general. Yes. Fant, Mitchell, and Tomlinson still were not great in the game. We did a good job chipping though. I would agree that Fant wasn't great. The thing with Garrett is like, yeah, you're going to get beat. Like you're never going to like, you're going to bleed at least a little bit versus Garrett. You just got to limit the bleeding. Like you don't want to bleed out. Some cuts, okay, we're fine here. Like, so yeah, he gave up some pressures, but I don't think he played terribly. He had a few bad plays in the run game, but I don't think he was dreadful. Mitchell, again, relative to expectations, was good. And Tomlinson, I didn't really notice bad plays from him. He was more quiet on film to me. So I think Tomlinson actually played pretty well. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Obviously, again, I binged the film this week to be completely honest. But I didn't see Tomlinson stand out in many bad ways. So I think he bounced back to what we expected him to be.
No, I agree. I think the whole interior played pretty well. Really well. And you let me know if Vera Tucker or McGovern. Well, okay. On that, but so like the interior. ABT played really well this game. I think he was overrated in his first week, but ABT was great. Tomlinson was good, and McGovern is going to like fans whatever it is just do not like him. But like some of his plays, like dude, they were some of the quickest blown whistles on ineligible offensive lineman down the field, whatever the fuck it's called. Because like later in that game, ABT is like 5 yards down the field. They don't call it to him. McGovern steps like 1 yard over the 1 yard because you only go 1 yard down the field, and they blow it immediately. So like they were really quick on the whistle with that. But other than that, he was good. Like yeah, he had a penalty or he had 2 penalties. But McGovern, the week 1, in my opinion, was the best offensive lineman on the team. Maybe it was ABT, but I'm going to say it's McGovern. And then this week, minus the penalties, he was good again. But the thing is, people are going to remember penalties. So McGovern penalty, oh, he sucks. But the rest of the game, the other. However many times they drop back or run it, he was actually pretty good, in my opinion. So I agree that the entire interior offensive line was pretty good this game. I mean the center, like I think centers kind of get a lot of extra negative attention because it's hard to see their good plays because they're right in the middle of everything. It's very hard to see that on the broadcast unless you get the replay. And then if there's a communication breakdown and someone blitzes right up the middle, which may or may not be the center's fault, it's always going to get directed at the center, which, sometimes it doesn't have to do with him. So I think McGovern is really underrated because like he doesn't get enough credit for the things he can do physically, like the reach blocks he can make and just his lateral movement is really good. And it's a great fit for this scheme too. So he was a big part of the running lanes that they've created in each of these first 2 games because the run game has been pretty efficient, well over 4 yards per carry in each of these first 2 games. And I think McGovern and Vera Tucker have been the most valuable players in creating that.
Yeah. CD says the run D, and which by the way, 160 people in here at 157 on a Tuesday is ridiculous. So thank you guys. But the run D was last season and remains a concern. The thing is, like, yes, it is still a concern, but maybe it's just me again. I binged the film. The first 3 quarters, I wasn't like disappointed with the run defense that much. I think they did, a decent job. And then it kind of, again, the floodgates broke open. It's almost like last year where we played Derrick Henry and like, we were like, oh, we actually played decently well versus Derrick Henry. Look at the end of the game, it's like 150 yards. We're like, oh shit, but we still didn't play that bad. And like, I want to see this team versus run defense or probably not the 2 best rushing offenses in the entire league, and then we'll judge them. Like, we expected them to struggle versus the Browns. We expected them to struggle versus the Ravens, and we held them to the lowest rushing totals since Lamar Jackson's taken a snap as a starting quarterback. So let's see them versus the Steelers, versus the Dolphins, versus the Packers. More, just leveled out here, or average-ish teams. So. Let's keep moving on though for some questions. Anything you want to comment on that, Nanya?
No, I agree because I think between these 2 games, like the Browns against the Jets I think this was an average Browns game, which is by league average standards is a huge rushing performance. But the Browns have had, I think, better rushing games than this. They were, in terms of their yards per carry, right about where they usually are. And then the Ravens, they held them way below what they usually do. Jackson had 1 carry against the Dolphins where he got more yards than the whole team got against the Jets. So
that was a wild game.
But that was crazy. I mean, the Dolphins game in a couple of weeks is looking very exciting. But yeah, I think between these 2 games, you take what they did against the run game. But let's see how they do against teams that aren't so good against the run. Because again, if you're still having problems against teams that shouldn't be running the ball well, like Cincinnati, like Pittsburgh, the way they've been playing, then it's a problem. But first 2 games, I think there were some good signs, even in this game, because look, overall it wasn't good, but there were still some moments where you could see flashes of that, like the big stops they made on that the drive before they took them out of field goal range in the 4th quarter. There were some good moments, so I think these are maybe the 2 best rushing teams in the league. So let's see what they do against normal running teams.
Steven Engel still can't stop a screen pass, which is true. There was bad tackling. Plenty of this game. And the Browns are, like, just in terms of, okay, they're a really good running team. Jets' weakness. And when they're running play action, obviously the linebackers are going to get sucked up because you're selling out for the run. Guess who's sneaking behind them? Obviously receivers and the tight ends. So it was a good game plan. And then obviously, just for the Jets being a zone heavy team, zone heavy teams, like, people think, like, to me, like, I think people overrate like zone versus man in terms of breaking up screens, because it zone teams, you're dropping back so that you get that initial drop back. And if you hit a quick screen, the blockers get out in front, whereas in man coverage, you have a guy on the running back, he's going to shoot that gap if you have a guy like Quan Alexander. So, like, people almost overrate or overlook the fact that zone can be weak against screens as well, especially if you're in a long distance situation. But they need to work on that in general. The tackling was bad. You have Mosley getting juked out by Jacoby Brissett. You have LaMarcus Joyner missing tackles. You have LaMarcus Joyner and Whitehead missing the tackle where JFM was held. Obviously, it didn't count, but you had some bad plays. And obviously, getting guys like Nick Chubb and Hunt are going to lead to some missed tackles on some good runs, because they're easily the best 1-2 punch in the NFL in terms of running back duos. So again, let's play some teams with some normal offensive line and some normal running backs. But yeah, it's still not an excuse, Steven Angle. I agree with you. Legatron, people were all for. Why the hell did they get rid of Pinheiro? He was great last year. Terribly, they should have never cut him. And now it's like, Legatron, he's great. That's how it's going to happen. I didn't have a strong feeling either way. I said it was going to be Greg Zuerlein. Kyle said Pinheiro, but I think everybody's kind of like 50-50. Like, who cares? But let's keep going on. Browns interior defensive line, probably the worst the Jets will see all year. Not sold yet on the O-line. Yeah, that's their defensive line isn't the strength of their team, their interior defensive line. So yeah, I agree with that, Mike. You're playing guys. I don't remember their names, but guys like Calais Campbell are a little bit different. And you're going to see plenty of other really good interior defensive linemen this year. Obviously, next week we have Cam Hayward, so that'll be a test for the team. But let's see. Yeah, you're right, Joe. How about we play as a team together? Wow, we can be. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you can combine the Jets defense from week 1 and the Jets offense from week 2, we can win some games. So that is exciting. Verge Tibbs, I'm confident. We can talk about this now. I'm confident Conklin will fix his current issues. He'll be fine. Blewett's breakdown was some very good cape. That rocker stuff. it's like funny with the Jets. Like it's like, oh my God, you say he was great, dude. I think he had 2 fumbles in his entire career through like 4 years, and in two games he has 2 fumbles for the Jets. Like you cannot predict that. And even like, so for me, Conklin, we can get into Conklin. Like this game, I think that the fumble and the drop at the end of the game really clouded people's like opinion of him, because earlier in the game, I think he was actually relatively solid. I think he had a better blocking game. He had a few nice contested catches. He had that one route, the in where he had the rocker step again over the middle, made a contested catch. He had the ball to it was like the right side. It was only like a 3-yard route. But Flacco was pressuring. He forced it to Conklin. Conklin made a really nice extended grab. So yes, he has to fix the fumbling problem. And I'm glad to hear him come out and say like, I got to fix that shit. Basically, I think he actually said something like that. So he knows it, and it's something we can't predict, but I think he will bounce back. And the hands thing too, yes, he has to fix it on that drive. Again, not necessarily defending him, just giving you all the context. Like he was clearly looking to run with the ball because it was a situation where we needed to get yards, and before he secures the ball, he starts running. So are you confident as Verge Tib and or as both myself and Verge Tib are in Conklin bouncing back?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, fumbles is like, he had 2 in his whole career before this. There's no way he's going to keep up this pace of a fumble every single game. Hopefully it doesn't become, somewhat of a theme. I would prefer for him to have none over the remainder of the season. But yeah, I think not ideal at all, and we're not excusing it. But it definitely has clouded some of the other things he's done, like the one catch you mentioned where he had the in break. That was really impressive. Like, that was a great catch, how contested that was. And then the route.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blocking, I think, was better in this game. They really relied on him to give some help to the tackles. I think he did a good job. So, but yeah, I think we've seen Conklin show a lot of the stuff that made him appealing. It hasn't necessarily shown up in the numbers yet, and the fumbles have been disappointing. But I think you've also seen, and also Robbie kind of broke this down in his breakdown that he posted yesterday. But his timing on the route with Garrett Wilson on the game-winning touchdown was a very precise job that kind of did a good job of holding that defender so Wilson could get behind him. And, that's a type of subtle thing that I don't think a Ryan Griffin or a Tyler Kroft would have done in that situation. So I think we've seen a lot of as advertised things for Conklin, but we're still just kind of waiting for it to show up in the production and for him to clean up those fumbles.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like you look at his stats, like I don't know what he had, like something like 6 catches for 40 yards this week or 35 or something like that. Like that would be a really good game for our tight ends like a year ago. So, and again, the fumble, the drop, they're inexcusable, even though the drop did technically really probably help us at the end of the game. But 2 fumbles in his entire career, 2 fumbles in 2 games with the Jets. Like it's not replicatable. He's not going to keep fumbling every game. And I still think he's a very good tight end. I'm not gonna drop off of him. And again, I think he did a really good job like chipping. Overall, I'm trying to think of any like run blocking reps, but overall, I think he's a much better blocker this game. Let's see. Marcel Harris got me so upset with the stupid flag he calls on. Dude, I saw that flag. I was like, cut him. Like, get rid of him. Why do you the flag that dumb for like the 53rd out of 53 guys on the roster? Like, just get rid of him. I was so pissed on that play too. But let's see. Joe Garrett Wilson proving why he was my number 1 wide receiver in the class. He was my wide receiver 2, and London's still lighting it up, he's lighting it up as well. But with that being said, I did say Garrett Wilson has the highest potential of all these guys. That's why I compared him to Odell Beckham. Like his lower body movement skills is ridiculous. And I see the Justin Jefferson thing too. I get it, like the long strider type as he runs routes, but he is absurdly explosive. We'll get into him in a little bit though. But let's see. Do the Jets have 2 number 1 wide receivers? I think so. And I think they still have a really good number 3 too. Like people talking about like getting rid of Corey Davis. Why? Like I'm paying Corey Davis $12.5, $13 million this year, and I'm just running the shit out of 11 personnel with them, and having Conklin on the field. Like I don't necessarily need Uzama next year. I think they can get out of the Uzama contract next year, right? Or am I mistaken? Could be wrong.
Probably not realistically. I think it would take $5 million or so in dead money.
Oh, okay.
So you might be stuck with them. Yeah.
So no, yeah, I thought it was more of like a 2-year contract, but a 1-year guarantee. But okay, and Uzama, we'll see how he bounces back. Obviously, week 1 didn't do much, didn't play a lot. Injured this week, might be injured next week. But I thought he was gonna be one of the more overrated guys, or he was one of the more overrated guys by fans. I've been saying that since he signed. Pretty much day 1 as soon as I watched it. This is the best receipt ever. What's up, Sneakers the Boots? Nice to see you here on the afternoon. Let's see. Was Garrett not initially not on the field after his drop? Was Garrett not initially not on the field after his drop?
Garrett Wilson, I think.
Yeah. What do you mean not initially not on the field? I don't know. I don't know that. Again, lack of sleep. I don't know if you could decipher that better than I can. I don't know what you're asking there, CD.
Maybe they're saying like, did they bench him after the drop? I don't think so.
Dude, he was lighting it up. Like it was a third down. He dropped the ball and then he came back in the next drive, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we need to sack Burrow. He's already been sacked 15 times in the last 2 games. Was it? Yeah. Is it like 15? I think it's 14.
13.
Right?
Yeah.
13. 14. Yeah. Listen, if the Jets don't get 4 or 5 sacks this game, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. Like, you hope it's a Carl Lawson revenge game. Like, you want Q to get some. And Q's been playing well, and we'll get to we'll go through position group by position group. Obviously, we're hitting on a little bit here, so we'll skip some players, but nonetheless. Let's see.
No, I agree on that because there are some excuses, legitimate reasons for the pass rush so far. Ravens, unique offense. You want to be disciplined on the edge. Browns, elite offensive line. So there are some reasons the pass rush hasn't been amazing so far, but this week you got to tee off or else there are some serious questions.
What about this one? Which talk about Lawson from Chicky Rodriguez. Is anyone going to talk about where Lawson is? I've heard more of this dog. It's Joe's dog and his name is Grover, so it's not this dog, my guy. Just kidding, not really. Barking than him having any impact. So the thing with ACL tears and Achilles tears, and there's a dog barking again because you're talking shit about him. So it's the thing is, like, with Achilles tears and all these injuries, like especially soft tissue stuff, like typically it takes a guy a year or two to really hit his stride, but Lawson has been disappointing. Like, this game, he was absent for literally the entire game. And even the sack, like, he had like not the best formulated bull rush or long arm, whatever he was trying to do. But like, it seems like to me, like his explosion is not necessarily the same it was 2 years ago, at least to me watching, and not necessarily comparing side by side. And he's relying a lot of like ducking his head in his bull rushing. You don't really see a lot of technique from him. So maybe he's getting into the flow of the game. But obviously, if he keeps playing like he is, like he's definitely gonna be off the team next year. Like, he's not worth $15 million with how he's, or was it $14-15 million ish he's getting paid. He's not playing up to it right now, but we have 16 or 15 games left. So he has plenty of time to bounce back.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. But I agree. I think you definitely expected a little bit more. I mean, the first game, I thought he did a good job in terms of, playing what the Ravens bring to the table, just edge discipline. I thought he had some good run plays in that one. But this game, yeah, he's pretty much silent. He made the sack at the end, but I feel like Quinnen kind of caused that a little bit more than he did. And then other than that, I rewatched all the plays yesterday. I think I saw one other win, kind of. So it was a silent game yesterday. And again, granted, pretty good offensive line. But, Jedrick Wills is who he's mostly facing. And he's a good player too. He's a part of that, but not the best player in that line. So yeah, you expect more going forward.
Pug Life, Carter looks fast. Too bad on that. The fact, and if you actually watch it, like, technically, did he hold? Yes, but if you're gonna call that penalty, and then earlier in the game you don't call the Quan Alexander penalty, where I put that on the film show, like, the guy's literally hugging him from behind and restricting him from moving forward, and he didn't get called for a hold, and Fant like barely holds the guy, and it's a penalty. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, that would have put the Jets at the 5 or 6 yard line and said we kick a field goal. And that was a 57-yard field goal too, right? And like, at that point, you're like, holding. Of course, they're gonna miss a 57-yard field goal. Like, it was brutal. I'm going to answer this, but I want you to answer it before I sneeze. So, Joe, what's your opinion on Lawson playing extremely wide on his wide non-positioning? He seems to be 25 yards away from the QB. Was he setting the edge? Really puzzling. P.S. No more rookie QB. I agree. What are your thoughts, Nanya?
Well, I think that's part of the appeal of what he brings to the table. I mean, with his explosion, that's the wide nine is a big part of why the Niners broke out in 2019 when they drafted Nick Bosa, is just spreading him out, letting him get ahead of steam and get into some of those bull rushes, and he should be effective on these. It just hasn't worked so far. Like you said, a lot of him attempting bull rushes that haven't really amounted to much. So I don't have too much of a problem with it. I think it just hasn't been effective just yet. Yeah.
Larry Mono, I love Zach. He's a future in my mind, but building a winning culture is more important than evaluating talent. The Jets hope it's 1-1. It's not like, oh, we go to Zach Wilson. He's so much worse than Joe Flacco. Listen, if Zach Wilson's worse than Joe Flacco, it's pretty clear we have to move on. Like, he has to be better than Joe Flacco this year.
Yeah.
Like, Joe Flacco is very limited. So if the Jets thought that Flacco was legitimately a better quarterback, then that's a massive problem. So, and I don't think they believe that. I think they have faith in what Zach Wilson could be, and you saw that at the end of the year. So, hey, we didn't prepare for Matt Barkley that 1 year against the Bills, and how did that go, Joe? Yeah, he wrecked us that one game, and we got like blown out too. That wasn't even a close game to my like. I think we got blown up like multiple touchdowns that game. Joe, go ahead and take your victory lap on Reed. Yes, I appreciate that. I was early on Reed, but with that being said, I also think he might be a little bit overrated this week. He had 2 pretty bad missed tackles, and also the last play. Like, listen, if Ashton Davis was held and he was not there, Reed let up a ball to the 35-yard line, and they had like a 52-yard field goal if that ball was completed. And he was a good 2 yards away from Amari Cooper there. If you actually look at the closer up view, at the minimum a yard and a half. So not the best. Like, people think he was amazing this game. I think he was solid, but not great. He had the nice tackle, but the tackle was pretty generic. Like, it was 3rd and 15. He was dropping into his zone, and he was afforded the opportunity to read the quarterback because of how deep of a zone he was in and the situation. He drove, hit the guy great. But I think this game, he was good. He wasn't amazing. Michael Carter was super underrated the whole game, made a lot of guys miss. Yeah, Michael Carter is a savage, dude. Like, he is so good. I've been a little bit disappointed with his pass protection overall. But Carter's showing a lot of fans. Like, and I'm going to say most Jets fans were like, okay, Carter's still going to get a good amount of the carries. But then there were some fans who thought that Brees was going to be like the bell cow and Carter's going to be a backup. And Carter's showing you why. He is what he is. And while to me, Brees Hall, it shows more like physical capability than Carter. Carter, to me right now, is the better running back in terms of like vision. I don't know if you broke down that one play or you saw that one play, Nania, but I think it was like a crack toss or something like that. And Brees Hall has a tendency to bounce runs. He definitely does. And there's a very big open gap in between. It's like the DBs and the outside and the linebackers. And if he hit that hole inside, he's probably still running and he bounced it to the outside. So I think he's struggling a little bit with how fast the game is moving and having a tendency to bounce runs outside. And I think eventually he will be like the 50% snap taker while Carter's 35. Or actually, it might be more really because you don't really see anybody else carry it. It might be more like 55, 45 or 60 to 40. But yeah, I think Carter was a little bit disrespected by fans. And right now, to me, on one run, no matter what the run is, I'm taking Michael Carter over Brees Hall. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I agree with you. I think, like you said, in terms of purely the rushing aspect of it, I think Carter's more polished right now. Just the vision, I think, is better. The consistency at which he breaks tackles is because in this game, Hall outproduced him in terms of the yards, but Carter had that one run, which I think was 6 yards. That was just an awesome play where it should have been a loss of maybe 2, and he breaks one tackle, breaks another, then gets a face mask out of it, which is something that can happen when you're so elusive because guys are tackling you or trying to at awkward angles. So despite the production in this game, I think Carter still played pretty well in terms of his rushing. Like you said, I think that's where Brees Hall can separate himself is the pass blocking and just the overall passing game kind of versatility that Hall brings to you. So I think as time goes on, that's where Hall is going to become the primary back. But right now, in terms of rushing, I think Carter's is definitely being overlooked in the sense that this isn't even knocking Hall because I think he's still pretty good right now.
He's a rookie
because he's a rookie, and you saw when he can bounce it outside, he could still produce some good runs right now. So I think he's still solid at this point. But Carter is really good, and I don't think that should be overlooked.
Yeah, I want to pull. I'm not. I don't. The only thing is, when we used to do it with, we used to do these streams with Zoom. It's a lot easier to pull up plays. It's a little more difficult now. I kind of want to. I'm not going to pull it up. I want to pull up the Carter play that you're talking about, where like you have quick penetration from Garrett. He avoids Garrett, presses up the field, spins Jadeveon Clowney, pushes forward for another couple of yards, hurdles over a guy who's on the ground. Like, he's a really good running back still. So he's a little bit. Again, I think he's a little bit underrated by fans at times. Nose Kills, appreciate the 10 euros as I'm about to go to Italy. Appreciate that, my friend. We'll see how I do with the manual car. I'm still really nervous. I haven't driven manual since I was 17, Nania, and obviously 12 years later now. And I only drove for like 30 minutes, and now I'm about to go drive in Europe in a manual car. So hopefully I don't suck because I really don't have any other options. So we'll see how that goes.
I've never driven manual, so
It's
you'll do better than I would.
It's difficult. It could be difficult. I'm just nervous that because like you need to get into the flow of things, like the flow on a flat ground and start hitting the hills. I'm nervous that I'm gonna go into the parking garage or whatever it's gonna be where I'm gonna pick up the car. It's gonna be like the car and the hill. I'm like, fuck. Like it's just gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. I have shitty luck. So I'm not stopping on hills. I'm just going. I'm going through red lights. Let's see. It's great to see our receivers getting 2-3 yards of separation. Zach will drive the ball in these corner routes. Yeah, he definitely. There's some windows there that Joe Flacco just can't hit, for sure. Let's see. MC is underrated in general. Yeah. So Rob B, you were on this before we were. Obviously, we are about 30 minutes behind. I'm trying to catch up. Then we'll go through our feelings position group by position group and kind of hit over the stuff we didn't. Bengals about to get whooped. Rolling up or laughing. Yeah, it's a good matchup. It's definitely the best matchup we've had in terms of just, listen, we have some good corners. Their receivers are the strength of their offense. Their offensive line's not the strongest. Our defensive line is strong. And then the other way, I think that our offense can run on this team. And I also I'm trying to think they have William Jackson or they don't have William Jackson anymore. I forget who their corners are.
Signed Washington, I think.
Yeah, their corners aren't the strongest. Listen, I think that Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and Corey Davis can carve them up a little bit. So I think you're looking at
Apple and Chidobe Awuzie.
Okay, come on. You're talking about Elijah Moore and all these guys. Like they should be able to carve them up a little bit. So the thing is, they have Joe Burrow, but the thing is, Joe Burrow hasn't been great through 2 weeks. He's been holding the ball. He's been taking a lot of hits. So if you told me the Jets win, I might bet the Jets money line. Which, by the way, I got to drop a couple of bets before I go to Italy because I don't think I can bet there. So I got to drop 3 weeks worth of bets. Jets mess. What's up? Browns head coach Blewett. 100% he blew it. No offense to the name. I was here like, oh, they blew it. I'm like, what? Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, he did. Like at the end of the day, people talk about the Chubb run. What about the 2 runs, or I think it was a screen and a run to Hunt before that? Like Hunt also ran out of bounds. Yeah. Which is just as bad. So, like the Jets post, so we get a one Jets drive. Don't they release them every week? Why wouldn't they release it this week? Or is it going to be early? Is that what they're saying?
I'm pretty sure they still do it weekly, no matter what.
Maybe they're going to drop it early. Maybe they'll drop it early, which
sure.
This is the first one Jets drive I'm legitimately excited to watch. Like after the loss, how are they going to
watch last week's?
Yeah, I was like, how are they going to spin their 37th of out of 38 losses they've been doing since they've done one to drive? Like how many times can you spin a loss? Like, yes, they fought hard. And time to go on to the next.
It's all about building. You got to take the positives. 60%.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just
gotta
so
keep
brutal
straining.
to watch. Mm-hmm. Oh, the strain thing. I haven't heard it in a while. The strain thing, but yeah. Oh yeah, the first round tackles. Yeah, I don't know Neal's grade. I don't know Aquano's grade. Aquano was going to take some time to adjust as tackles, so that's not surprising. And I told you guys, that Neal was going to struggle. I don't, maybe he bounces back, but I don't know. Jack Mehoff, how big of a douchebag are you to wear sunglasses inside? The thing is, Jack Mehoff, is the sun was in my eyes because of the way it hits the blinds. So that is what it is. Let's see. Any chance we see Sherwood to replace Quincy and or anyone with a pulse to replace Joyner? I'm not replacing Quincy with Sherwood right now. And while I would like Quincy to be more consistent from down to down basis, like he adds like that speed element, like rallying to the ball element of this defense. For Sherwood, yeah, he had an impressive preseason. I think his third game was a lot better than his first and second game. His third game, I was legitimately impressed with his mental processing. But they're not going to bench him or bench Quincy for Sherwood. And Joyner, listen, at this point, like I don't really think you do much worse. So would I be okay with Davis at least seeing some more reps? Yeah, and see how it works out. And even Tony Adams, like people, unfortunately, Tony Adams, his lasting memories. Okay, he got beat by Amari Cooper, who's a Pro Bowl receiver. You're matching up a UDFA on a Pro Bowl receiver. Let's not roast him. It wasn't the best rep. Like he opened up early, but I would like to see really anyone over Joyner at this point. Like, and we talked about this all offseason, Nani. Like they need somebody at safety. Like even if it's not like okay, Joyner's your starter, at least bring in somebody with a little bit more reputation or a couple more reps as a backup, because behind Whitehead, they really don't have much of anything. Davis had a play. Okay, great. It was one play. Still impressive, but still, and Tony Adams, I like his film, but they really have nothing behind Whitehead, who to me, again, in general, not to be like negative, like there's some guys I liked and read and all this stuff, but like Whitehead was another signing where people assumed he was gonna be great, and Jets X Factor. I told people, you told people, like, listen, the guy misses a lot of tackles, and we've been seeing that so far throughout the season. So they don't have a lot of talent at safety. So yeah, Joyner, they need to do more to the safety position, but I would be pretty much down with anybody replacing Joyner, at least giving it a try.
Yeah, no, I agree. There should definitely be some pressure on him because it's been really bad, and he's not the type of player who deserves any leeway because this is, coming into this year, he hadn't played a full season at safety since 2018. He was supposed to last year, but obviously he got hurt. So talking about an older player coming off a season-ending injury who hasn't played this position in a long time. And, with the Raiders a couple years, different position, he was playing the slot, but he was pretty bad there. So there's really no reason he should be gifted this spot other than the fact that, like you mentioned, that they don't have much else behind him. But at this point, he's playing like one of the worst safeties in the league, if not the worst. So I guess maybe one more game, but, you got to make a change soon because he's had a pretty negative impact so far.
It's Snoopy. Joe was right. I came in here drunk and said Moore is overrated and Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 1. Maybe I need to drink and play the lotto. Listen, I don't think Moore is overrated. I think Moore is still very, very good. But Garrett Wilson, the way he was targeted and he played last week, he was wide receiver 1 last week. Can he maintain it? I hope so. And I think that Garrett Wilson has a higher ceiling than Moore. While Moore is a really good athlete, Garrett Wilson's like a next level athlete. Like he has like that Odell Beckham type movement skill to me, where Moore is really smooth. He's just not as explosive as Garrett Wilson. So yeah, it's possible. I think you might legitimately have 2 wide receiver 1s. Like I still think Moore is going to be at the minimum a top 32 receiver, probably a top 20 receiver. Like I still really like Moore. So I don't want to, push Garrett Wilson up by dunking Moore's head underwater. Like, yeah, he blew up this game, but Moore is still a very good player.
No, I agree. And I think the fact that right now, we're talking about Moore having down games. He still had over 40 yards in both these games. He's 90 total. And all the catches he's made, like in this game, were big catches where he created, on his own, got himself open, made a pretty good grab. So, the fact that these are down games while someone else is playing really well, in this case, Garrett Wilson, is a good sign about what this receiving group can be. There doesn't necessarily have to be a number 1, a number 2. The fact that, you have 3 guys who are capable of making big plays and carrying, being the focal point in any given week that's what makes a good offense, more so than having this is your 1, this is your 2. So they have 3 guys who they can depend on, and it's going to be interesting to see how it alters each week. This was the Garrett Wilson week. Maybe he gets keyed in on, and this is the Elijah Moore game coming up. And, Corey Davis is going to have his weeks. Like the first week, he was in the driver's seat. So it's just good to have a trio of guys who you can rely on.
Yeah, and then Greg Zuerlein's the hero this week. He's going to miss a kick next week, and people are going to want Pinheiro again. And then there's going to be a week where Garrett Wilson gets 3 catches for 20 yards and doesn't really do much, and Elijah Moore has 10 catches for 100, and people are, okay, it's Elijah Moore all day. Like, it's just what happens. So they're both very good, but Garrett Wilson unquestionably was the number 1 last week. Like, they went.
Yeah, I mean, tell me what you think about this, but I was thinking, like, I feel like this performance that he had, Garrett Wilson against the Browns, was the first time that a Jets receiver really felt like true, like what you think of when you think of a number 1 receiver. This is the first time I felt like a Jets receiver kind of embodied that since, peak Brandon Marshall in 2015. And, Elijah Moore had some great games last year, but I think just the way Wilson was clearly becoming the go-to guy, in the red zone.
Targeted like what, 12 times, 12, 13
14
times?
targets.
14.
Just the way he became the clear driver of the passing game, the number 1 target. It was the first time I really felt like, this is our guy right now since kind of that Brandon Marshall peak. And Elijah Moore came close, but I feel like this was a little bit closer to that. Do you agree?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think back like exactly how Elijah Moore's like Dolphins game kind of happened. But at the same part, like I don't think he had as many targets, and a lot of his yards came off of that one like 60-yard break or 70, whatever, 70, 80, whatever. It wasn't 80. It was like 60, 65, something like that. So Elijah Moore is still really good. So
yeah, no, it's like you said, it's not to put Moore down to bring Wilson up, but it's just, I think, a testament because Elijah Moore is really good. We still love him. And the fact that Garrett Wilson is in his second game already comparable to that and potentially even, having a higher ceiling is just testament to how talented he is. I mean, he was a 10th pick and more second round for a reason. So again, it's not to put one down to raise up the other. It's just the fact that you have two really talented young players.
Now, conscious ego. The refs weren't good. Now, there were some missed calls both ways. Like Fant could have been called for a false start a few times in that game. But yeah, the holding call was terrible. The Conklin play, like again, I'm a Jets fan. When the Jets get a first down and then it's ruled out of bounds or whatever, not a completion, like you're automatically like, yeah, we're screwed. So I don't know how that was incomplete. I guess they said he didn't control it through the ground because it did pop out because there was clearly a green line between him and the white line. So it had to be that, unless they clarify. I don't know. But yeah, that game was not good for the refs either way. Now, were the Jets more screwed than the Browns? Sure. But they missed some calls on the Jets as well. At least in my opinion. Jacob Martin is soft. Jacob Martin's always been soft in the run game. It's what you're getting as a pass rusher, which he's been disappointing so far, but still. Ty Johnson used for pass. Yeah. He's good at stepping in pass pro in terms of like just laying guys out and stepping in and not being afraid to lower your shoulder into guys. So that's why he's been used. But the problem is, pass protection is fine, but then you ask him to go out for a route, you're screwed, Yeah. So I still rather have Coleman than him. I'm not a big Ty Johnson guy, but it is what it is. How much of pass rush underproduction is based on game plan? Staying home versus Lamar versus just performing poorly. Seemed like at least last week one they were beating the Ravens O-line a decent amount. What are your thoughts on that, Nanya, from Eric Schmidt?
Yeah, first game I think there definitely was an aspect of kind of taking their foot off the gas pedal a little bit because you're playing Lamar Jackson. The last thing you want to do is over pursue and give him a lane to the outside. So I definitely think it was noticeable that they were not rushing as aggressively as a lot of these guys typically do when you're talking about Carl Lawson, Jacob Martin, even on the interior, Shepard, Thomas, Rankins. Like these are explosive guys, and I think you could see in that first game, they weren't going. They were more focused on the gap discipline more so than explosive rushing. And then, so I think in that game, there definitely was an aspect of that. And it worked when you look at what they did in terms of the run defense. So I think that was the explanation that game. But this game, they just got beat. I think you have to put it simply. And this is a great offensive line. So you don't expect it. I mean, the Jets are paying a lot of money to a lot of different players and investing high draft picks so they can compete with these types of offensive lines. But it's not like they got beat up by a bunch of scrubs, but at the same time, I think that's just what happened in this game. They weren't winning.
I'm really interested to see what happens with the Jets. I didn't see the snap counts from this week, but what happens in the future? Listen, they're paying JFM like $14-15 million last week to play 51% of the snaps. It's not enough. You have to be Aaron Donald to be making that money on 50% of the snaps. But what's up, Chrono Kenny, Rich? Swolsey, is K9 the best value free agent ever through 2 weeks? Yeah, that was one that was confusing to me because you watch him and I was impressed. I just put out the film review for free. Obviously got out late, so I apologize for that. But nonetheless, it's an hour and 30 minutes of a lot of positivity about Quan in general. And then you see his contract, $2 million-ish, $2-3 million, whatever it was. I think it was even less than that. He's been really impressive for the most part. It's not like he's a stud, but for let's just say $2 million. He's been, really, really good. So definitely great value. Probably in terms of value, probably the better, the best signing that people are like, oh my God, he's not the best signing. I'm talking about per his value. For $2 million relative to his contract price, he's probably been the best free agent. Maybe you disagree?
No, I think there's definitely an argument for that. Just because I think it might have been less than. I'm going to look it up right now. I think it was less than $2 million. But yeah, I think
crazy.
For what you're getting, a third linebacker who's played probably about half the snaps so far and has made quite a few big plays while not giving back too much. Again, not to say he's amazing. He's made some mistakes for sure, but he hasn't given back a ton considering what he's produced, some of the big plays in the backfield. So, he's played pretty well. I think it's a good value signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rich is a big supporter. I think you hit on this too.
1.2.
That is crazy. He played 12 games in the last 2 years. He missed 4 games, but in general, and Corey Davis he's underrated by Jets fans. Go watch him every single rep in the Ravens game. Ignore the drop. The drop, it's inexcusable. The ball was behind them. He didn't look the ball in. Okay, drop is bad. watch him all the other reps. Like Corey Davis was very good week 1 minus a drop, which is going to stick in people's minds because it's, it is what it is. But moving on, let's see. Where the fuck is TJ? Has anyone seen a gigantic tight end that we don't use? TJ? Am I
CJ?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, he was injured last week, Rusty. Now you could question about his usage in week 1 where he didn't see a lot of reps. But they got down and they started to pass the ball. But again, listen, at the end of the day, if he's only playing 20, 30 reps and he's getting $7-8 million a year, it's not the best signing in the world. And I was blown away how they paid, or how Uzama got more money than Conklin. I'll never get that. I don't understand. But nonetheless,
I'm curious on Uzama. What do you think going forward in terms of the personnel? Like, do you think that they should start kind of leaning into the 11 as their, primary source of offense? Because like we knew going in, like they wanted to get 2 tight ends. They wanted to run a lot of 12. That's what the Niners did. That's how the Jets started last year before they changed it. But, then the offense started playing better last year when they lessened the 12 usage, started to use more 11, even some 10. And then this year you look at the distribution of their talent. You have these 3 solid to good wide receivers. You have one good tight end to Conklin, and then Uzama, who hasn't done too much to really warrant that much playing time. So do you think they should kind of maybe lessen that 12 usage, lean into the wide receivers a little more?
Yeah, listen, like obviously it's like where LaFleur, like his staples are, from like that run game and heavy personnel and play action and all that stuff. But at the same time, like who is a better player? Like either any one of Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, or obviously Garrett Wilson or Uzama. Like they're much more dynamic players. I want the best players on the field. So yeah, they need to lean more into heavy heavy 11 personnel because that's their best players. Get the best players on the field. Yoshi, does Mosley look slow on film? He definitely did to me. I think he was fine week 1. This game, his coverage has been suspect to me. And he's been making like he was, at least to me in this game, and you can obviously, I don't know if you think differently, he was like boom or bust in the run game. Like one run play, he would do like a really good job. Like the one play he anticipated or he just shot it was a sprint draw really, really well. And then he gets juked by Jacoby Brissett. Like it was very hot or cold for Mosley, which you don't want for a guy who's making, I have no idea what he's making now this year because of all the contract things that happened, but he's making plenty of money for the Jets. So not worth it for what he's getting. And to me, he's been disappointing. This game was disappointing for Mosley.
For me, I mean, I've accepted that I don't think he's ever going to come anywhere close to what he's making, but I think what you can realistically expect from him at this point is to be a good starting linebacker, and I don't think he was in this game. I think in coverage, when he gets isolated and he really has to, pick someone up and cover them is when he can get beat. Like Njoku had that one play where he was able to beat him inside and he dropped the pass. But so he lucked out. But the in route. So there's that.
He was staring at the quarterback on that play. I forget exactly, but he hasn't been great in coverage.
Yeah, I think when he's just dropping back and it's just about positioning himself well, passing off routes, being in the right spot, things like that. I think he could still do pretty well because he's a smart player, and that's not something that'll change with age. But when guys get a chance to make cuts against him, like he can definitely get beaten pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm. West Coast Jets. How much of the D line's lack of pressure is coming that the coaching staff is asking them to play with? So I think that was definitely part of it. Week 1, like there was one specific rush where like you see JFM winning to the inside, and then he actually like kind of tugs the guy to get outside leverage on him to contain Lamar Jackson. And in this game, listen, like I don't want to make excuses, but is part of it the fact that you're going against a really heavy running offense that it takes all 11 guys to bring down Chubb. They're running a lot of play action, quick hitters. Was that a part of it? 100%. It was. But at the end of the day, you still want to see more pressure from the defensive line, considering how much money they're making and considering how much money that Cuba is going to make next year, considering, or assuming he's going to be on the team next year, which based on the way he's playing these first 2 games, you'd assume they'd want to offer him a contract. Like these 2 games, I don't care what the stats say. And Nani, I know you're not just overly relying on the stats. You watch the film too. Like you'd agree that Q, even though not having a lot of stats, these 2 games, he's been pretty damn good. Maybe week 1 more than week 2, but week 2, he was still good.
No, yeah, I think definitely been another year where the box score stats aren't there, and the critics are going to come for that. And granted, you would like to, when it comes down to contract time, and you're thinking about paying him one of these huge deals, you would like to have some sacks and some forced fumbles and stuff like that to justify it. But even looking beyond that, like, he has played pretty well these first 2 games. First game against the Ravens, he was awesome in the ground game and did have quite a few pressures as well. He was winning pretty often. And then in this game, I think he probably won the most often, I would say, of anyone as a pass rusher. And then defensively, run defense too, he had some plays. So Quinnen has always been that type of guy who is better than given credit for. Just, you would hope at some point that this season, especially with all the talent around him, it's going to become more obvious so everyone can see it. So he has the production to warrant a big contract. So I do think we're still at a point where, the contract aspect of it is going to be interesting. Like, is he doing enough to warrant what he's probably going to demand for this particular Jets team that is, going to have to pay a lot of young players coming up? They're already invested in some other defensive linemen. So still, I think the contract is an interesting discussion, but he definitely has been playing very good these first 2 games.
And even in the run game, like there was a few plays where like it was some type of gap run where like he gets down blocked really quickly, and instead of like just trying to penetrate up the field and bend and make a play on a running back, like he does a really good job just fighting against the down block just to clog up the middle of the defense. And that was the one play. I think it was only a 4-yard gain to Kareem Hunt. I don't know if you remember the play specifically, but he gets down blocked and he just starts to drive the guy laterally. And Kareem Hunt's like about to run bottom. He takes out his one hand and like he smacks him in the face and then like grabs his neck and like almost choke slams him. Like, damn, cute. Like, it was impressive. It might have been hands to the face. But yeah, so I've been impressed. I've been impressed with Q. So moving on, let's see. Jets 33 Bengals. Yeah, we'll preview that in a little bit. I'm going to run through the chat, which I'm about 20 minutes behind. I'm starting to make my way there. We'll go through all the position groups. We'll recap the Bengals game. And then I got a pack for 2.5 weeks of Italy. So excited for that. Of course, though, the Jets are going to, like, they've been so shitty for so long. I'm going to go to Italy. They're going to win three games. I'm gone. Or like 2 out of the 3. I'm not going to be able to do film reviews. I'm going to be pissed. It's going to suck. But I got to figure out a way to watch the game. I think Italy, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I know you guys will. I think they're 6 hours ahead, at least at Eastern Standard Time. So I think it'll be 7 o'clock at night when the Jets game starts. So sway her into, okay, let's have an early dinner tonight. The only thing is, not I don't know if you've been to Europe, like sometimes it'll take like an hour. It'll take like an hour for the waiter to come with your drinks. Like they do not rush dinners. Like America, if you don't have your waitress out in 5 minutes, your dinner out in 15 minutes, people freak out. And in Europe, you're lucky to see your waiter for the first 20 minutes of you sitting down. So it's gonna be like 6:30. Like, give me the check, please. So we'll see. I'm excited for that. But I need to watch the Jets games. Let's see. Eccles. We can talk about Eccles. Dude, he came in for 4 or 5 reps. And the first play, or in terms of passing, at least that he was targeted. Like you have David Njoku, who uses a shock release, just physicality off the line, tries to bump him backwards, and then Eccles does a nice job of playing the ball and pushing him out of bounds. And then the next play, did a really good job matching up against. Was it is it Harrison Bryant? Is that his name? Yeah, does a nice job matching him, and then obviously getting the pass deflection. So, like, that's the great thing about depth, and this is why we don't trade guys. Like, there's plenty of people like, oh, trade Hall, trade Eccles, get rid of them. Like, no, there's a reason you have those players. And Eccles, listen, only 4 or 5 reps came in and absolutely, balled out for those plays. So, huge credit to Eccles to come in a red zone situation and break up 2 passes back to back. Because like you see him come in, you hear the broadcast crew like, oh, they're going to target him, whatever. He gets targeted, and guess what? He shut them down. So, super impressed with Eccles.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a big benefit of the 2021 season. Is I think a lot of these young guys who are able to get playing time and really go through trial by fire as rookies is going to help them in the future, and that applies for both the key guys who are starters, Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, Vera Tucker, but not only them, but you look at a guy like Eccles who has a whole season under his belt as a starter. Now he's your 4th, 3rd corner, whatever it is, on the outside, and that's what you are relying on when your starter gets hurt. That's a lot better than what a lot of other teams are putting out there when your starter goes down. So I think that experience is really going to pay off in the depth of this team, because you have these players are, young and talented, have the ability to improve, and they have the experience to go with it that a lot of other, 6th round picks, 5th round picks in their second year don't necessarily have. So I think that it kind of manifested itself with Eccles in that sequence.
Yeah, NJZ. If Brees has flaws in his game and he isn't a bell cow, and we have MC, shouldn't we have used those, or should we have used those picks on Brees? A lot of evidence against value of running backs, and we could have. So I think individually, and one of the tackle thing, they addressed it fine in the offseason. Obviously, they got hurt the last second. Now, did they address it fine after Becton went down? No, I want to sign Dwayne Brown and another guy, but that's a story for a different day. Obviously, it's worked out a little bit differently, but we couldn't obviously foresee the future. And in terms of Brees, like I think individually, yes, like I think that a linebacker or a good safety there would make more of an impact, maybe individually on the team. But at the same point, I'm okay with the Jets trying to get an absolute stud running back and having 2 stud running backs for Zach Wilson. Like help Zach Wilson as much as you can. Again, if they were a team, maybe I don't know, with the Patrick Mahomes, you don't necessarily need a bunch of studs on offense, then okay, yeah, draft that linebacker, that safety. But they're trying to do everything for Zach Wilson to work out in the future. So I'm okay with using it on another running back because, that was one of their final holes on offense. Not necessarily like it wasn't a hole because you have Michael Carter, but you didn't really have much behind him in terms of like good running backs. So to have a really good 1-2 backfield is great. And realistically, like, again, it's Brees' second game. He has to adjust to the NFL. It should be pretty quick for a running back. But you're looking at these guys developing, like they should be a top 5 running back duo in the league for years to come. When Brees hits his ceiling, which we are going to assume, and based on the pick, should at least be a top 15, top 10 running back. So you have that, and then Michael Carter, who I think is a starting level running back. Like I'm okay with using that pick on Brees to help out Zach.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of the same logic, with the Vera Tucker trade up. Like there have been people out there who say, the points don't match up with that trade or whatever, but it's just about, supplementing the most important part of your roster, which is that young franchise quarterback, and, doing whatever it takes to supplement him. So I think that's what they're doing with this Brees Hall pick. And, the team they played in this past week, the Browns, like they showed you what a really good running back duo can do. Like, if you can have that kind of pairing where 2 guys can complement each other and be able to allow each other to stay fresh and then consistently play at that high level, it can be really dangerous. The Browns wouldn't be close to the offense that they are without having both of those 2 guys. And they had a graphic about it during the broadcast, but there's a huge difference in how the Browns have played with and without Kareem Hunt the past few years. So that can be really valuable. And we've already seen the Jets have had a plan for how to use these 2 guys together, because we've seen some 2-back sets where, Brees Hall on a jet sweep or one of them flexes out into the slot. So they have found creative ways to do it and really make the most of what it means to have 2 guys out of the backfield who are dangerous. So I think there is a plan for it, but I do think that, Hall does have to be really good to justify it, because if he's just another running back, if that's what he amounts to be, then yeah, I think you would maybe prefer to use that pick on a safety or a linebacker, fill one of these holes on defense where, maybe you could have gotten an every down starter for years to come instead of just a split backfield guy at a position where, it does come down to scheme and offensive line and a lot of these other factors. So I do think the expectations for him are higher than if you took another position relative to, his own position. So I do have still pretty high expectations, but it's a pick that did make sense, I think.
Again, could it not work out in the future? And could we have really wanted, like looking back, like a Nakobe Dean or a Chad Muma? Sure. But I'm okay with the process at the time of taking Brees. And again, listen, me saying that he hasn't been great in his first 2 weeks. It's his first 2 weeks of his rookie year. So, Simon, I always call you Simon. Now we're going to see if we know how to succeed coming off a win. It's a good point. It's a good point because last year, listen, we're all pumped about the Titans game, and then we got our shit rocked by the Falcons, and then we beat the Bengals. We were all excited, and then we got rocked versus the Colts. I think was after the Bengals game.
Yep. 0-4 after wins last year.
Yeah. So they need to do better. Like, and even like, okay, 0-4, yeah, they were a bad team. Like, they didn't even really compete. Like, the Falcons game was dreadful. They didn't get blown out, but they're not a good team. Clearly Matt Ryan wasn't necessarily the one holding back the Falcons either. Like, he's been garbage with the Colts as well, which is crazy to see. Daniel C. When does one Jets? I think it's like 8 or 9 o'clock, right, or something like that. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Like, I'm not really that excited. Like, it's something to watch, but I'm not like focused. And this week, I'm going to like watch it. Maybe on the plane. By the way, does anybody know if you could? I think I'm flying United. You're flying United International. Am I going to be able to watch the Jets Dolphins game on the plane back to United States? Does anybody know? I really hope so. I don't care if
That
they pay
would be such an
$100.
experience. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but like to
Watching
watch
a
a
Jets
Jets
game
game
on
on
a-
a plane, I don't know if I'd be able to handle that. That'd be crazy.
I'd rather figure out if I can handle it than not do it at all. You know, like
Yeah, that's true.
I'll
That's true.
I'll figure it out.
It is better than watching it recorded. That is the worst experience.
That, and like the thing
Watch
is
a
too, like
recorded game.
yeah, like texts from people and Twitter notifications and
Yeah.
like I have to mute JetX. Oh, Zach Wilson leads Jets to crazy win. Like I don't want to see that shit. You know, I can't. It'll ruin the game for me. So I got to watch it on the plane. I gotta kill the notifications from the JetX mobile app, which you should download.
Yeah.
Let's see. Chris Sullivan, Moore will have a breakout game soon. Now that teams will focus on Wilson. Moore is a good enough receiver to have a breakout game. Like he's been averaging like 50 yards a game or something like that. He's gonna have his 100-yard game. It'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 45 right now and hasn't come close to breaking out. Like it only takes, he had the 150-yard game, whatever it was last year. You just throw one game in like that in addition to what he has right now. Now you're averaging 70, 80 yards a game, and that's top tier stuff. So I'm not concerned with Moore. Like the routes have been good. When he's been targeted, he's delivered. And another thing with him that I'm sure you've noticed, but he's been blocking really well. Like it's not something that was
he's given
part of him coming out, but like he's had some great blocks these last 2 games.
Yeah, there was like that pitch to Hall on the right, and like he did a really good job. And I think that's the same play that ABT pancaked the guy. And then you had also that play where Carter, I think it's like another crack toss or something like that. And Carter, I think, blocked Clowney. Like he went full balls, the balls to the wall into Clowney, not full balls into Clowney. That's not what I should say. But balls to the wall in terms of blocking Clowney. And they've been giving a lot of effort, and like that kind of shows like that team, like that camaraderie. Like I'm not like it was Elijah Moore considered, or did he care about blocking when the Jets were 1-8 last year or whatever? Maybe not, but he's been giving more effort, which he didn't even do at Ole Miss really. So that's a positive. Let's see. There's something else I wanted to see. Oh, the showdown between Waddle, which by the way, that's not. I guess whatever. Waddle Hill against Moore Wilson's gonna be crazy. A lot of those plays that I was watching from Tua seemed like ducks that they were running under. And that's like more or more than him throwing beautifully throwing balls. But did he have 6 passing touchdowns or 6 total touchdowns?
Passing. Yeah.
Damn, man. Yeah, that's. Listen, at the end of the day, we had
it's like I agree with you. I don't want to say those things because obviously we're biased, but you watch those highlights, like none of those throws are really that amazing,
Yeah,
he did have some. I watched some of his full highlights. Some of his better throws were not the touchdowns or the bombs, but we can't say anything. If Zach Wilson had 469 yards and 6 touchdowns, I don't care how he threw the ball. I would take it every day. So. Let's not say anything. Let's see what we do in a couple weeks against them.
Oh, there was something I missed up here that I wanted to highlight. Damn, I forget. So, Joe, one critique of Salah that Salah has been that his system only works with all-star talent, but could it be that a system can turn anyone into an all-star? I think like generally you need good players to be good on defense. Like there's very few players, or there are very few defenses that are good without really good players, right? Like other than like who? Like DMP is a really good guy. The Broncos old DC who Vic Fangio, like some of those players, like the top of the top, can do really good without good players. But like you need good players to be good defense. I don't necessarily buy that completely, but I don't know. So would be great if we can get Lawson, JFMQ, and Clemens on the field at the same time. It would be nice if you could keep one of those guys on the field at all times and not rotate. The rotations they have still drive me crazy. I don't know. This is one of the best O-lines we play all season, though, right? The Browns, I would say probably the best, right? Unless there's
probably.
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
Eagles up top, so it's probably the Browns.
Yeah. The best free agent has been DJ. I would say just like in general, like who is the best? Yeah, he has been the best. But again, I think this game, the last game with him by him was really good. This game was good, not great though. So again, let's see. Sorry if I missed this. Yes, you missed this. But both your thoughts on Max Mitchell. Haven't watched him a lot, but directly, but seems not. Yeah. So week 1, probably a little bit overrated in general. Like initially watching, I was like, okay, damn, he did pretty good. I watched it again. I was like, not so good, but still relative to expectations, he was a positive. And this week, I feel like he was actually like almost like he's like a below average starter level, which again, people are going to think is negative, but for a 4th round rookie, it's pretty good going against Clowney, who is again the exact guy you do not want to play, Max Mitchell, in terms of again strength versus a guy who did struggle with strength in college. I'm trying to find anything else to add to that. I'm trying to find a question I missed a little bit up in the chat.
No, I agree. I think that's the biggest thing to remember when you're looking at him is to understand relative to expectations. He's been impressive. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been average, above average, but considering they're on their 3rd tackle here, 4th round rookie from Louisiana, playing against Clowney, playing against the Ravens pressure scheme last week, could be a lot worse, and it hasn't been. So still a lot of room to grow, but he's been exceeding, I think, any realistic expectations.
Yeah, I agree. Rich, again, also curious about what you guys think about the defense. I know I was with Joe last week saying pump the brakes on it being totally fixed. Listen, I've been impressed, but I also want to see them against some better receiving talent just in general. Like, listen, yeah, Cooper's good, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, nothing to write home about. Rashad Bateman, nothing to write home about. So I want to see them against the Jamar Chases of the world, the Hills of the world, the Waddles of the world. And I want to see their run defense against not 2 of the best rushing offenses in the entire league. So it's to be determined, but I definitely think regardless of what happens, unless something goes absolutely completely wrong, like they're a better defense than last year for sure. Like, again, the run defense, I don't think it was terrible this game until maybe like midway through the 3rd quarter into the 4th quarter. Like I was relatively impressed with how they were stopping Chubb. So I think they're going to be about a middle of the pack defense. Maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher. Depends. Obviously, a lot of weeks to kind of figure that out. But last year they were, I think, 32nd in the league, Nania, maybe 31st, something like that. So I think they're going to take a big step up, but I'm not necessarily ready to say they are either good or bad. I think they're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the upcoming matchups will tell us a little bit more because you got 2 very unique opponents to start. Great run games, great O-line in the Browns this week, but also not the best receiving talent. So there's still a lot more to be determined in that aspect. I think the biggest thing going forward is the pass rush because a lot of other aspects, I think we've seen some of what we expect, pretty good cornerback play. Safety is an issue. Run defense against great offensive lines, great running backs, probably going to be an issue. But the pass rush, like we talked about, there are reasons it hasn't been great so far. But let's see how they could do against a pretty bad offensive line / quarterback who takes sacks a lot this week and going forward. If this pass rush can be what it definitely has the potential to be, then it could cancel out some of the issues that we know they're probably going to deal with throughout the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen the team versus great receivers. We haven't seen the run defense versus an average running game. We haven't seen the pass rush really be completely unlocked because of the offensive lineman playing and the rushing attack of the Ravens. So let's see where they stand. We have a good mixture of teams coming up, and like you're talking about, hopefully they're not really tested in the secondary because the defensive line is getting there. But defensive line versus bad O-line, step up. And then obviously you have guys like Boyd and Higgins and Jamar Chase step up. Like, let's see how good you really are, So it's gonna be fun to watch. But let me return of Jedi Rusty Spooner, which is a true return because I haven't seen you in a while. I think I saw you last week, but you're coming back for the season, Rusty Spooner. I appreciate that. Which did your boy Kyle Phillips have a fumble on a kickoff on a punt return yesterday? Did he? I'm not sure if I watched the game, but I might have heard that. So watch out, Rusty Spooner. So what of Mims now, which is funny. Nobody's talking about Mims 2 weeks of the season with how the receivers are playing. Try Mims at tight end, slot, or trade. If we're not going to play him, we definitely need something for him. What do you do with Mims at this point, Nani? Like, do you just take him for a 5th round pick? Like, the guy is not going to play unless there's an injury to Corey Davis for the more than likely. So I was kind of in the middle where his talent, you see it in the final preseason game against, what was it, the Giants was the last one? I forget off the top of my head. The Giants preseason game, like you saw him ball out, and he looked like he actually wanted to be there, and he kind of tried harder than I've seen him try in some other games, which is obviously saying something about him overall, because there is definitely some lack of effort there, but nonetheless, is what it is. At that point, I was like, okay, you have the talent, so do you really want to get rid of that for a 6th or 7th round pick? Like, no, not necessarily. But if he's not even going to be dressed, like, what's the point? You know, if he's not going to play, doesn't have a chance to show that talent, which I think it's still in there. Do you just get rid of him for, like, what's the minimum you take for Mims right now? Like a 5th or a 6th? Because there's people out there like, oh, we're going to get a 3rd from him. You're not getting a 3rd, not getting a 4th from Mims. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of kind of take what you can get for him, because I think at this point, like, any world where he gets another extended chance is probably a disastrous one anyway. You know, there's just too many red flags for me to really believe enough in his talent for me to not take even a 6th round pick at the minimum, because just the effort questions, then the large body of work of opportunities he got last year that he completely botched. And then this preseason prior to that last game was not very impressive either. And even at that point, it's against 3rd stringers and stuff like that. And we've seen many examples already through 2 games this year of how preseason can be misleading. I mean, Michael Clemens looked unstoppable in the preseason, and, you know, he's been a typical rookie so far. So I don't know. I don't. And I was very high in Mims after his first year, but the last, the 2021 season plus this offseason didn't do anything for me to believe in him. So I would take pretty much anything, but I guess 6th round minimum. But I don't know. Even if it were as low as a 7th, I kind of feel like that's more than what you're eventually going to get out of Mims. That's just me, but I could see having a higher bar than that. But I don't know. I'm kind of team just get what you can at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm on your team there. It's, again, like, you're not showcasing him. You're not doing anything like that. Like, you're not going to get a 4th from him. So would I rather him sit on the bench? What, showcase him next preseason? Like, what are we doing? So get something from him before you have to cut him. You know, he's not going to sign a contract in 2 years. So I don't know. Rich, slightly different take on Quinnen from the Jet side of things. I think it's working out perfectly, playing great without the stats. I think part of not having the stats, though, too, Rich, is him not playing. You know, what did he play? Week 1 was like 62% of the snaps, which was the highest. This week, I'm not sure what it was, but you have to understand Q's team is also going to come to the table. Okay, you know, normal teams play 80% of the snaps. If you extrapolated his numbers to 80% of the snaps, you'd get this. So that's going to happen. They're not going to be like, oh, well, at the end of the day, the stats are the stats. Like, they're going to look at snap percentages as well and bring up the Jets. Like, listen, he's not going to get stats. You're only playing him 60% of the snaps, right?
Yeah, so 64% first game, 57% against the Browns.
Okay, so around about 60, 61%. You know, so yeah, we'll see. But they're going to bring that up. They're going to be like, yeah, he's not playing enough snaps to get the stats he necessarily want. And Chris says he thinks Q is a goner. The depth, I feel like the depth they have built, and hopefully growth from JFM and Clemens. Listen, I'm keeping Q over everybody on this defensive line. Like, he's the best player on the defensive line. At this point, you know, I'm taking him over JFM. I'm taking him over really anybody, right? So I think he's a priority. Like, you can figure out a way to get out of the JFM contract. I'm getting rid of JFM and signing Q before I keep JFM. And listen, how much are you going to put into Clemens? At the end of the day, it's a nice story. Maybe he could be a good player. But he's still pretty much a complete question mark, minus a few good plays, you know, in preseason. He hasn't done really anything in the regular season, which is the time that it actually matters. So. Yeah,
no, I think the thing about Quinnen, I think he just brings a lot of value in terms of just team building because of how he is able to help you in both phases of defense, which is something that I think is more rare for defensive tackles than people realize, because a lot of defensive tackles in the league kind of lean towards one or the other. Like a lot of the guys who are the bigger name defensive tackles who Quinnen gets compared to put up bigger pass rush stats, but they don't really do what he does in the run game. And then there are a lot of great run-stopping defensive tackles who don't nearly have the technique and pass rush ability that he has. So the fact that he is, you know, so impactful in both phases really adds a lot of value. And, you know, it would be great if he could, you know, start being a bigger splash playmaker. You know, part of that is playing time. Part of that is him not quite being as special as, you know, you would think as a 3rd-round pick. But just the fact that he's been consistent too, just in the sense that, the sack production hasn't necessarily been consistent, but just, you know, this is going on the 3rd straight year of him being a really good run defender and a very solid pass rusher as well. So he's a really good core piece, you know, more so than as much as I like John Franco Myers, and there's value with him too because of his positional versatility. But a guy like Quinnen Williams is just able to help you in both phases, and I think there's a lot of value to that. So he's that's the type of player you like to build around. So we'll see what it all comes down to the numbers above anything. If they want him to be the next, get a contract that puts him right up there, whether it's the new number 1 contract for the position or it's top 5, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's beyond Joe Douglas's line in the sand, which we know he is a hard line negotiator.
Yeah.
But if you can get him at something reasonable, then you definitely want to bring him back, regardless of the splash production.
Yeah, if he wants that much, I can't see them giving it to him just because of the rotation. Like you just can't justify paying that much to a guy who's going to play 60% of the snaps unless they figure out how to alter that some way where Q is in more. Marvin, a bunch of places. I know I'm flying into Rome and then we're going like up and to the left and around the coast. I know we're not hitting like the Amalfi Coast, but we'll hit the Amalfi Coast eventually. I think we're gonna hit Spain in a couple of years. So we'll hit Amalfi, then Spain or something like that. But I know I'm flying into Rome and then going north. That's all. Venice and I don't know. I forget all the freaking names. If it was like normal names, I would remember. Like, oh, we're going to Texas and all this stuff. Yeah, I remember, but I can't remember all the freaking different language. So let's see. Nicholas Joseph, yo, fellas, have a great show. We'll watch later. A point that Nani tweeted out the other day. Brandon Eccles was we just talked about him a couple of minutes ago. So when you catch it again, you'll hear Nani talk about it as well. Also, there's Rich, you missed the beginning. The guy might have been saying how much of a douche are you for wearing sunglasses. I'm actually outside. If you can't tell. There's siding behind me, so if you don't put those context clues together, then you're the idiot. But nonetheless, Rich, I'm getting like my house, walls are getting knocked down and all that stuff. So there's some nails and some drill gun or some drills and all that stuff in the background. So you might hear that. Also, some crickets during the day, which is odd, but they're coming out too. Let's see. Not that many people speak English. Use a translator app. Luckily, my wife is pretty good at Spanish, and she started doing a little bit. And obviously, there's a lot of tie-ins with Italian, so she'll be fine. Sean O'Brien, 170 watching, which is now 144, but we'll still take it. But only 82 likes. Smash the like button for my boy Blue and Nanya. Yes, I'd appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Yes. Throw the. I don't ever ask for them, but when you guys ask for them, I will highlight that. Let's see. I'm going to be a fat piece of shit when I get back from Italy. Just wine, pasta, bread. I cannot wait. It's gonna be great. The lack of pass rush is due to I don't know about that. If I want to see Huff play too, but if he's the reason, then there's a problem. Let's see. I would also slightly disagree with the Mims thing only because there will be injuries. Actually felt like that was the biggest dodged bullet against the Browns, and knock on wood, I don't have any wood around me. They have been healthy through 2 games, luckily. Thank you, Nanya. But with that, I don't think Mims coming in for Corey Davis for a game or 2 is enough to not get a 6th round pick from at that point. Just bring in somebody else. I just don't think he's being featured enough. It's like, oh well, is a 6th round pick worth more than Mims coming in for maybe 2-3 games? To me, give me the 6th round pick. They're not going to target him anyway. It's just I severely doubt it. That mic is shaking so much. Might be me. But let's see. Clemens has a good bull rush. Give the man props. No, we give him props. But again, he's a 4th round pick, and he's not. What has he done through 2 games? Not really much of anything. Led a shot or 2. But I'm not going to say he's an all-star or people are saying oh, he's the future. He could just as easily be gone in 2 years. Realistically, people love the persona more than the actual player sometimes. I think. So let's see. No way we get rid of Q. Again, it depends on the play or on the.
I actually brought up some of the top defensive tackle contracts. So let me know what you think of the idea of Quinnen on one of these. So Donald's number 1, not happening. 3 for 95. Obviously nowhere near that. Number 2 is Buckner. 4 for 84, 39 guaranteed. Would you do that?
So what would that come out to yearly?
21 a year.
21 a year for a guy who's playing. I don't think I could do it for a guy who's playing 60% of the snaps. That's
So
a
is it
lot of money.
the snap count for you? Like, say they got him up to
Yeah.
70% for the rest of the year, 75%. Then would you be on board for that, or still too much?
Yeah, if he keeps taking steps in the right direction and like builds upon what he's doing now, and he legitimately becomes like a top 10, like solidified top 10 interior defensive lineman, but I think like anybody in that top 10, you're going to pay like that next biggest contract. Like, it's just how it works in the NFL,
Yeah.
no matter the position. So at that point, I think he's worth it. Again, anybody in the top 10, really, corner, receiver, doesn't matter. We're going to get that next biggest contract. So I think he would be worth it. But you have to be playing him at least 70, 75, 80% of the snaps. You just can't justify it. Like, he'd have to be Aaron Donald level good to be getting $21 million a year to play 20, to get being paid $21 million at 60% of the reps. You just can't have that. There's just no way. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't know. That's one of the things we're going to be eyeing down a lot in the offseason. Lawson and JJ will be wrecking shit sooner than later. Lawson, hopefully. JJ, hopefully. He had a nice sack week 1, but he's been a little bit slower in terms of a pass rusher, which I personally anticipated for months. I said he had a long way to go as a pass rusher, and I went at some people who had JJ number 1 and Hutchinson down low, and dude, Hutchinson had 3 sacks last game. Like, Hutchinson was a savage. Like, people look too much into he has short arms. Yeah, he has short arms and he's fucking dominating people. Like, it's fine. People look too much into measurables and all that stuff for me sometimes. But yeah. JJ started a little bit slow. What do you think about JJ overall? Like, I think he started a little bit slower, I think, than a lot of fans expected, but I didn't really expect much more than he's been doing. I expected to be a little bit slower than most. So
No, I think we definitely expected there to be a growth curve there, because there, I think, just needs to be some progression in terms of the pass rush, overall pass rush game. So I don't know. I think it's about as expected. I think also part of what I expect is, he would pop occasionally with the splash play, and he did do that in the Ravens game with the sack that he had, which was a good play. So I think he's been about as expected so far. Maybe a little bit more of the run game I would hope for, but overall I definitely expected him to probably be the quietest of the top 4 picks that they had. Then his ceiling should maybe come 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, he had that one play in the run game this game where he didn't set the edge as well as I want him to, and I think it was Hunter Chubb got to the outside where if he really squeezed the run well, it would have shut it down. But nonetheless, Joshua wished the Bengals would have won that last game. Now they're desperate. Listen, at the end of the day, like, the Jets should be desperate and pissed too. Like, the Jets shouldn't be like, oh, we won a game, let's celebrate. Like, the Jets should want to build upon that and win too. So I listen, that's your opinion, Josh. I'm fine with that. I'm not gonna I'm just giving my different opinion. I think that that's not an excuse for the Jets. Like, the Jets should come in as hard as possible as well. And so should the Bengals. It doesn't matter if it's 1-1, 0-2, 2-0. Like, at the beginning of the season, you got to be playing hard. So the Jets should still win. So
it'll be interesting to see how they come off of this, because I think you could clearly see, like, just in the post-game interviews and all that, like, this clearly meant a lot to this team. So it's, now's the challenge is, do you let this be your peak, or do you let it be something you build on? So it's cool to see how much it means to everyone, but you can't be satisfied with that. It has to be something that is just the start of what's to come after.
Yeah. What's up, Art? Art stopped by the tailgate. Later, Art came by the tailgate when we were depressed, and we lost, and he's like, dude, this fucking sucks. I had no voice, but nice to meet you, Art. Rich says, so are you guys guessing Lawson will return to dominant form at some point this year? Nania, will Lawson return to dominant form at some point this year?
I think, I don't know. It's tough to say. Just the word dominant is what makes it tough. I don't know if what we've seen the first 2 weeks has me super confident he'll be a dominant player, but can he maybe be 90% of what he was in 2020? I think he could do that, which is, maybe a top 20 to 25 pass rushing edge rusher. I think that's about what he'll be, a very good edge rusher relative to the rest of the league. Maybe not dominant or Pro Bowl level, but still by far the best the Jets have had in the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I think realistically, expectations dropped as soon as he got injured, with multiple leg injuries. Couldn't even sign. I was expecting him to be, a top 15 guy. And again, I think he could be like a top 25-ish guy, but the first games aren't really encouraging. I think next year might be a better year for Lawson than this year, but I'm pretty sure they can get out of his contract after this year, so he might not be back. We'll see. yes, Jets. If the Jets are comfortable and they're going to let the Bengals come in mad and beat them because they're mad, then we have a serious problem. The Jets haven't won like back-to-back games, and how was the last time the Jets won back-to-back games? Nadia, what? Yeah, that's that.
The 2020 games. Yeah, remember?
Oh shit, yeah, 600. Yeah,
that doesn't count though. That
Yeah,
year
I don't know
never
if that counts.
happened.
I don't know if that counts. Does he have he has a half a sack? But yeah, Lawson hasn't been.
I mean, I think it's definitely within, the realm of possibility that he could be the same player he was in 2020. I don't think that's impossible. It's just what's more likely, I think, is probably a little bit of a step back from that.
Yeah, the D looks like it continues to make mistakes and mental. Part of it's the fact that they're young, and a lot of those mistakes too. Like you look at the Ravens game, like a lot of those mistakes were from LaMarcus Joyner and Whitehead, who I tried to tell everybody he's not good in coverage, and he's not good in coverage, and he gave up a big play. I think it's more from like a few individual players, and then some just players being young in general, and Art will get to Sauce in a little bit. Let's see. Our defense was very disappointing the past game. Again, I think it was Jacoby Brissett behind a very good offensive line with a very good running game that gave him time, and he just hit the easy passes, but it was disappointing. So let's just move to. I'll hit the chat a little bit after this. Let's just move through position group by position group quickly, Nani, and then we'll do the Bengals game because we've already been on for like 2 hours. But nonetheless, is there anything else to hit on Flacco? Again, I think Flacco really good the last drive. I think he was definitely better this game, and that's a result of him having more protection. But again, like he was not elite. There was plenty of missed throws. Again, even just that last drive, everybody's like hyping up how good he was, which he was very good the last drive. He missed Elijah Moore. He dirted a ball that Elijah Moore could have been out at the 4-yard line, or maybe even turned it in for a touchdown. So he missed Garrett Wilson in the end zone. He missed Corey Davis on that. I guess technically it was a third to last drive. It was like 3rd and 12 or whatever. And they run like a sail or flood concept to the left side, and he misses Corey Davis over his head, where it could have been an easy first down. So he was solid. Is there anything else to really add? We kind of hit on Flacco a decent amount. I don't know if you want to hit on anything else.
No, I think he was solid in this game. Definitely not great because there were quite a few missed opportunities, like you said. But he was solid, and I think this is the best case scenario of what he can bring you is good protection, and he'll cash in at a decent percentage and make you make enough plays to have a productive day when everything else is working pretty well. But I think you could still look at this game and think, if Zach Wilson is the ceiling of what we think he could be, then it could have been an even better day. So I think this performance by Flacco kind of shows you, okay, this can be the floor of this offense if you could just be confident, hit the throws that you should hit, take advantage of good protection. But also if Zach Wilson can, again, be, hit tight window throws, make plays on the move, when he's pressured, be able to escape the pocket and create plays that Flacco would never create. If you add those things in, maybe the offense could have been even better. So I think it's exactly what you hope to get from Flacco is the best case, but still nothing great.
Yeah, somebody in our JetX, I was just being a dick, but like somebody in our JetX chat in Slack was like, yeah, like Wilson's gonna be able to hit all these throws that Flacco can't deep. I'm like, yeah, he's also gonna dirt a 5-yard out. Like, so he has to control that as well. Like Flacco's more consistent with his accuracy for sure. Where Wilson has to fix that undoubtedly. Now going to the group that protected him, we talked about it a lot, but overall, Fant, disappointing, but not a huge disappointment. Again, you're going to give up numbers to Garrett. There's no way you're not going to, even if you are getting chips and things like that. Lakin Tomlinson bounced back. I thought he was very good this game. McGovern, again, people talk about McGovern like he's the worst center in the league and he needs to be replaced. I think he's an average center. Unfortunately, he had 2 penalties where they were blew very, very quickly. Nonetheless, still can't happen. ABT was rock solid, and then Mitchell was not great, but relative to expectations, good. We kind of hit on that. Is there anything else you want to add to that as we move through the position groups? With lightning speed, I guess.
I agree. I thought it was a good game from the interior tackles, considering the expectations. The opponents. It wasn't a good game, but it could have been a lot more disastrous.
Yeah. Now moving on to, I guess we can do running backs. To me, again, Michael Carter was very, very good. Overall, I've been a little bit disappointed with his pass protection so far this year, but very, very good overall. Breece Hall, obviously he shows off his athletic ability, and he showed it off a lot this game. He had the wide open touchdown. He had a few nice bounced runs, but overall, again, he definitely has a tendency to bounce it to me. He needs to start hitting more interior holes instead of trying to get to the outside, because you can bust a run for 80 through the A gap. You know, you don't always have to bounce it to the outside. So I was impressed, but I still want to see more consistent vision for him. Past that, Ty Johnson had a nice block or two. And I'll move the tight ends. I'll lump them in with the running backs. Tight ends, Conklin, again, to me, he had a good game until he had the fumble. You know, the fumble is going to cloud everybody's judgment, but I thought he did pretty good in blocking. I also think he had a couple of nice catches that were contested, even though they were short. So I think he was fine, obviously. But with that being said, the fumble is inexcusable, so it drops him to like a negative grade. And then past that, I didn't really notice anything else. Obviously Ruckert had a drop on what should have been a pretty easy gain. He also had a play where he got jammed up in the backfield and tripped, and he was supposed to be like the flat option in a sail concept. But other than that, I didn't really notice much from the tight end. So anything to add from running backs and tight ends this game?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. Ruckert will be interesting because I think, the drop wasn't good. I feel like his blocking probably more missed blocks, not missed blocks, but just losing versus winning. So, I think it was a pretty ho-hum start for him. Not too much to write home about.
Yeah. Moving on to the receivers, Garrett Wilson was amazing. He had the corner route in the end zone. He should have been hit for a touchdown. Again, he had that 9 ball, or sorry, it wasn't a 9. It was a stutter go, where Flacco led him. It was at least a 50-yard gain, if not a touchdown, if he led him well enough. His routes were really, really good, really explosive. He had the drop, and the fact that he dropped the ball and then came through with a game-winning touchdown, like he balled out. Like he was amazing that game. That's great. Elijah Moore was more quiet, but still pretty solid when you actually watch him individually, where he's not necessarily getting the ball. Corey Davis relatively quiet too. Could have had a big gain. Flacco's arm or body got hit, and then he obviously had the play where the blown coverage, which if he didn't catch that. Oh my God. But nonetheless, Barrios had a few nice gadget plays, really nice returns. He was really consistent getting yardage on kick returns. So that was a positive. And that's about it from the receiver. Obviously, we can hype up Garrett Wilson and a lot of stuff, but and I think he showed the ability to be like that next top 10, top 15 receiver, but he needs to start stacking these weeks. I think I predicted like 600-700 yards for Garrett Wilson. You might be looking at 800, 900, 1,000 yards for this dude. So it's really exciting to see the receiving group and how they've been performing as a unit.
Yeah, I had low expectations for him statistically because I was just running through it and looking at all the different players they had to get targets to. And I figured, rookie year, they have a lot of other players to feed. So I figured, he would make his occasional plays but not be that consistent. But these first 2 games, he's just demanding targets with how often he's been open. 22 targets in 2 games. And I know the Jets have been passing the ball a lot, but even relative to everyone else on the team, that's a ton for a rookie. So, and as good as he was in this game, there were multiple plays that he still could have had. Like you mentioned, the deep ball. There were 2 plays in the end zone. And granted, they were back-to-back, so it would have been 2 extra touchdowns, but it would have been 1 more. 2 plays in the end zone, he could have been hit. One was down the middle. Flacco got hit, so he overthrew him. Then there was another ball on the outside in the end zone where Flacco kind of threw it inside and missed him.
Yep.
So there were quite – and then also there was another one towards the sideline that he got overthrown on. So there were quite a few plays that he still could have had in addition.
He has a corner route again, and he missed them. And then then last week, he had the route wide open over the middle, which Flacco made the right read. I'm fine with it, but he was open there. He had a fade route he was missed on. He had that whip route where he destroyed the corner. He's open for a touchdown. So you're looking at a guy who should probably have another 100 yards and another touchdown at least, maybe 2. So he's been dominating. Again, Moore's been quiet but good. Corey Davis minus the drop has been good. Moving on to the defensive line, I thought Q was solid this game. Past that, everybody else was pretty quiet. Rankins had that really nice play on the screen, where if he didn't get there, it was probably going to be a pretty big chunk just based on how the blocking was laying out. And then another guy who was impressive to me just in small spurts was Solomon Thomas. Really good effort on film. That play that I think Chubb broke up the right sideline when JFM got that hold call on him. Really impressive effort there. And then another play where he just did really well, just scraping down the line of scrimmage and getting flat to meet the running back. Past that, not really much I can think of from the defensive line. And obviously they didn't produce like we wanted them to. and they need to produce. This isn't an excuse, but the offensive line they went against is obviously stacked up too. So it's strength against strength.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Thomas and Rankins quietly had decent games, but other than that, not a ton to write home about with this group. Like the pass rush, I think Lawson, deserves some criticism for this game. He definitely played. He had 22 pass rush snaps, and outside of that sack, pretty much nothing. So you definitely expect a little bit more from him. But it's one game, and like when you look at it in the big picture, if you get 10, 12 sacks, whatever it is, that's still less than one a game. So it's not like you need to be dominant every single week to be dominant over the course of a season. So still plenty of time for him to turn around, but pass rush as a whole was quiet in this one.
Yeah, for sure. And this kind of like tying into it, the Chubb and Hunt break off those big runs in the second half. I don't know exactly what plays he was out for, but the one big was it the Hunt run? But you see Lawson comes from the backside. He wraps him up. He slips off of Lawson. And then you literally see Q like hug. I think it was Hunt. He like hugs Hunt and then grabs the ball and tries to rip it out. And he continues for like another 10, 15 yards. So he was a part of the problem too. And again, and it was legit. Like Salah wasn't bullshitting fans. And he said like there was guys who were trying to punch and rip the ball out when they shouldn't have been. And that led to some of those yards in the end of the game. So I don't know exactly what plays, but he was a part of it. Linebackers, Mosley, very hot and cold, which you want consistency from a guy who's going to be making as much as he does, but still very hot and cold. One really good play, one really bad play, which overall is a bad game to me for a guy who, with the expectations he has. Past that, Quan I thought was fine overall. Quincy was okay. You know, I don't think any of them really stood out in a good or a bad way. Like some hot and cold flashes, but to be honest, I wasn't focusing on the linebackers as much as I probably should have been. Again, I binged the shit out of this game, so you're probably a better insight than I do on the linebackers.
Yeah, I do feel like Quincy kind of had a rough game. Some of the screens he really did not take great angles on, which is kind of a continuation of last year. So I definitely would like to see better in terms of the screen defense from Quincy Williams. Mosley, like you said, there were definitely some good plays he made, especially towards the end, but you can't get juked out by Jacoby Brissett. You can't, give up easy catches over the middle when you're isolated against a tight end. So,
and the Chubb touchdown run, him and Joyner completely overran it.
Yeah.
And he undercut them and got an easy touchdown. Like that was a terrible angle for Mosley as well.
Yeah, Mosley did have some bad angles as well. Yeah. So Mosley kind of a shaky game, a little bit below what you expect from him.
Safeties, Whitehead had a nice play or two in the run game, but he still missed plenty of tackles. So that was disappointing. And then also the play where I'm trying to I think it was Jacob Martin almost sacked Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett spins out of it, and and Whitehead leaves his assignment and tries to get to Jacoby Brissett, and he hits Harrison Bryant like 25 yards down the field, and it was 100% on Jordan Whitehead. So not overly impressive, more of a negative game from him. And then obviously, Joyner wasn't necessarily as bad as he was week one. I don't know if he could be worse. Again, that one play was literally the worst play I've ever seen. It was terrible. And this game, it didn't show up as much, but he took terrible angles, missing tackles. There was a play in coverage where, again, I questioned what he was doing. I had absolutely no idea where Sauce really made up for him. But the safeties were bad, and we expected them to be pretty bad this year. Again, I think that Whitehead is a hit or a miss guy in the run game, but in pass coverage, whether it be man or zone, unless it's like an intermediate hook to curl, hook zone, curl the flat, I think he's good there. But in deep coverage, he's not it. So I was not impressed with the safeties.
Yeah, the safety, I think that's clearly the weakest position, and both of them. It's not Joyner, just Joyner. I think Whitehead is also a part of it right now. Because, look, he's going to make his big hits now and then, but he misses a lot of tackles at the cost of that. And then in coverage, as you mentioned a few times, there's a lot of weaknesses in his coverage game. So between those two guys, it's definitely the weakness of this defense right now. And any opposing team that's game planning against them is going to try to find ways to exploit Joyner and his issues in coverage with just some of the most basic aspects of what he should be able to do, and then the tackling between both of these guys. So
just run a post at Joyner. Just do it.
Exactly. So these are the two guys that I think are going to be focused on first by any team that game plans against the Jets.
Yeah, and like that was the thing with Whitehead too. Like, when I first heard about him, like it's like, oh, he never misses tackles. I think literally the first game he missed 2 tackles on Cordell Patterson that should have been easy tackles. And people are like, oh, I can't believe he got $7 million like steals. Like, you're paying $7 million for a lot of the run game, but it's hit or miss. Like, I'm not the biggest Whitehead fan. It just is what it is. I think if he's your second best safety, if he's your complimentary guy, okay, I could live with that. But him being your best safety, that's not ideal. Absolutely not ideal. Corners. Reed had a good game, not a great game. Again, that last play of the game, if you watch it, he is beat inside. He is lucky. Ashton Davis was there. The one run, he obviously he gets outflanked. The diving tackle was only a really nice diving tackle because he put himself out of position on that play. He bit way too hard inside. And then the run at the end of the game, which is obviously a good one by Chubb at the end of the day, but he missed a tackle there. So he missed 2 tackles. He had a really nice tackle on another play. Like he was good this game. I just don't want people to think he was elite this game where he had no mistakes. Like, again, he did have a few in the run game. And then that last play was, if he got beat there, it would have been inexcusable to me because he just bailed to the outside and just let Amari Cooper have the inside on him. And Amari Cooper any day is going to just hold his line, lean into him before his break inside, and he's always going to be outside shoulder, and he hits a sideline inside. So he got beat from the snap how he played that. So I was disappointed, very disappointed in how he played that because people look at it, oh, it's a positive play. If he was beat on that play, they got to the 35-yard line, you'd be thinking a lot different about Reed's game. And based on how he played individually on that play, he should have been beat. So I was very disappointed in that one play.
Yeah, and I think some of the run plays you mentioned are worth bringing up as well. He did have some good stops earlier in this game. Then obviously there was the big hit he made in the past game, but a couple of the run plays he definitely kind of gave up the edge a little bit. So the run game is a little bit shaky. Some of the outside runs, especially later in the game, were on him, which usually his run defense is really good. That's a big plus in his profile coming over. And first game, it was really good. And again, in this game, he did have some good plays, but a few mistakes as well, which granted, there was no team that's going to pressure a corner in the run game more than the Browns, I think. So it shouldn't be a huge issue going forward, but he did have some hiccups in the run game.
And I'm not going to kill him at the end of the day for missing a tackle on Nick Chubb, but it's all about the process leading up to the tackle, and his process wasn't always good, so you want to see that improved. At the end of the day, if you get trucked by him, it is what it is, Past Reed. Sauce, he was okay. He was okay. He wasn't great. I wouldn't say he was good. Somebody said in the chat, Cooper was never lined up on Sauce, but he definitely was because I definitely highlighted a play where Sauce got beat on a 3rd down. And then even like the Donovan Peoples-Jones, which again, go to the film breakdowns and hopefully watch this, but like the Donovan Peoples-Jones, like out and up, he was beat on the out, and he's having an issue right now. And he did this in college, but the thing is he can make it up athletically. He has a problem staying square at the snap. I want Tony Odom to teach him that kick step, because a lot of the time at the snap, he's getting on his heels. He's kicking forward, getting on his heels, and then just completely negating the effectiveness of press. Like, you want Sauce staying square, getting hands on, using his physicality. If he's getting his ass on his heels and backpedaling right away, why even line up in press? And we saw that if you watch the Donovan Peoples-Jones play again on that out portion. Let's say even if it's Donovan Peoples-Jones and it was led well, or if that's Stephon Diggs, if he took that same technique, it's a touchdown on the out. If the out portion was thrown, if it was just an out route, the Amari Cooper play, he was beat on 3rd down. Listen, he started to open his hips up a little bit too early. He has to work on shuffling, because there are guys like Stephon Diggs, like Tyreek Hill, who aren't Cooper, who aren't even Bateman, who are beating him on some of those plays because he is opening himself up too early. So he has to learn how to kick step. That is the biggest thing with Sauce. So I thought he was good. But not great. And again, that touchdown, it was a miscommunication. And I don't know if it was ever clarified, but to me, it looks like it was Sauce based on how quickly Joyner matched that flat and how he played the flat. I think it was on Sauce. Now it's always a possibility that Joyner was just completely off on that play. But to me, it looked like it was on Sauce. So I know it wasn't like a man for man touchdown that was given up, but at the end of the day, he almost could have been beat for a touchdown prior to that play too with Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I thought it was an okay game for Sauce, but I wasn't blown away.
I agree. I definitely don't think it was anything terrible. We've seen plenty worse from Jets corners. And he made the tackles when he had to. I don't think he was he's probably one of the few players who didn't have much to do with the run stopping struggles. So and even some of the plays where he did get beat, it wasn't him getting absolutely scorched or anything. So it's definitely wasn't close to his first game, which I thought was pretty good, but just an okay game, like you said.
Yeah, and he had a really good play in cover 4, making up for Joyner later in the game too. I'm just saying he's gonna get beat if he keeps dropping on his heels. It's just, and I show it in the film review of why exactly it happens. Like if he got a shuffling on the Cooper play, he just misses on the slingshot technique to get back inside on Cooper by like probably 2 inches. And if he stayed square, he would have had it. And same thing with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like he got lucky, he broke up the field because it put him in position to match him vertically. Whereas if he just was running an out route and Jacoby hit it on the out, he would have either gotten beat for a touchdown or right at the goal line because he opens up too quickly. So he could do that in college when he can match guys physically like very, very easily. And he's still a freak athlete. But in the NFL, you could be a freak athlete, but technique still very much matters because guys are really good. So past that, McCord II didn't notice him really at all, which is a good thing. Eccles came in and balled out in 5 snaps or whatever it was. Which, by the way, talking about corners really quickly, just a little side topic. We'll get into special teams. We'll get to the Bengals game. We'll go to the chat and we'll get out of here. In the Bengals game, we'll do it quickly. But Hall being inactive for this game, like, listen, I know the Giants game was tough. I know, week 1 he gave up a touchdown where he had really good coverage for the most part. Him being active for a game, though, is very surprising. Like, I still think Hall is a very good 4th corner. So at this point, if you're going to have him inactive, like, I get having good depth, but he still needs to be your 5th or a 6th, right? Like, is he going to get traded? Like, what's happening? Especially with Eccles capitalizing on his opportunity.
Yeah, that was definitely odd because, and just like, you and I always try to do, like, you should be evaluating it with the process over the results. And, he gave up the touchdown, yes, but it was as close of a touchdown as he could give up. So, like, does it make sense? Maybe in reaction to a touchdown, yes, but then when you look at it, it wasn't the worst. So I don't know. It was definitely interesting that they decided to, so quickly take that action with making him inactive. But, the decision was kind of justified with the way Eccles came in and played in relief. So it's interesting. He's definitely a player who I think absolutely deserves to be active. He's clearly one of the 53 best players on the team. And, one of the top corners on the team, at least enough to be active on game day. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, like we talked about, depth is great to have, but if he's going to be inactive, then I think you could definitely get more value from trading him than having him inactive. So
like, what do you feel like you can get for Hall? Like, what's your general feeling on what you could nab for that?
I mean, you compare him to other guys they've traded, like Jordan Willis or Blake Cashman or Chris Herndon. They could get
at least a 3rd round pick, right?
Then it's got to be like 4th, 3rd. Yeah,
I wouldn't trade him for a 4th. There's no way. Like, at least a 3rd, which I don't like trading. I don't like the idea of trading him because I think and like Hall, like, listen, again, recency bias. Was he great last year? No. Did he struggle at the end of the year? Yes, but he's still like at least a bad starting corner, which is a good backup, and like, yes, he struggled against the Falcons. And he had the 1 touchdown to Pitts. The next touchdown, he had pretty good coverage again. The thing with Hall is he actually has pretty solid technique sometimes. He's just not the best athlete. So he's not able to, like, people say, oh, like, and yes, he doesn't have the best ball skills, but I think people also don't kind of factor in that he doesn't have the athleticism to like close in on balls. Like you have to be an athlete to get interceptions as well. So he puts himself in good position. He doesn't have that final closing speed to have that explosion, to have that leaping ability to really pick the ball off, So, yeah, take this. I'm getting a call from the prosecutor's office, so I gotta take this. Nani, go to special teams. I'll listen while I'm also taking this call.
All right, yeah. So special teams. What a bounce back game for the special teams. I think we were all giving them some deserved criticism for that first game. Zerline, 2 missed kicks. Braden Mann had a very rough game in his season opener. Had the bad shank that set up a Ravens touchdown. Had another couple of short punts that he was just lucky took some good bounces. The return game wasn't great, but then they come back in this game, and this was as good of a special teams game as you can have. I mean, Braden Mann was. I posted his highlights, like a little highlight cut up of him, but his punting was much better. His hang time was good. The distance was good. He got a couple out inside the 15, I think. One of them was by the 4-yard line. So he punted well. He called a fake punt. He executes that perfectly. There was also on one of the extra points, sort of a low snap from Hennessy that manhandled and got a good hold on. And then the onside kick, which we talked about earlier, was very well executed. So Braden Mann had a great game in reaction to, the Jets signed Ty Long prior to this game to the practice squad. So pushed him a little bit with some competition, and he responded to that. Then Greg Zuerlein, perfect game, makes all 4 of his extra points, makes the 57-yarder, which is the main reason that you keep Greg Zuerlein over Pinheiro, is to have the potential to make those distance kicks, which Pinheiro hasn't shown he can make those yet, whereas Zuerlein is as good as anyone at those. So the kickers were great between Mann and Zuerlein. Then I think Barrios was underrated in this game as a kick returner. He got some short kicks that he had the opportunity to return, and he had 3 returns. I'm pretty sure all of them went past the 25, a couple of them past the 30. So he was excellent. So the special teams in this game really came through. And then also in the onside kick, you obviously have to give credit to Will Parks, who did a good job getting in there. And then Hardy, who, another guy who prior to this season, there were some questions. Do you keep him? Is the special teams value worth it for a roster spot for a guy who cannot play any defense? And he comes through with this huge play that definitely shows you why it's pretty good to have some guys with special teams talent. So special teams with a huge bounce back game.
Yeah, 57-yard field goal on rubbing my friend's bald head. We have a couple of good returns from Barrios. The onside kick was amazing, and the plan of obviously Will Parks lighting up Cooper, and then Hardy recovering. Which at first, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, okay, maybe they were lined up next to each other, but Hardy's all the way inside. It's the fact that was the plan was, what about the other couple of guys? So the fact that Marshall Harris missed that, I was definitely nervous. But yeah, they balled out. But yeah, I got a call from the prosecutor's office in reference to a case where I had to chase a guy who was butt naked down the middle of the highway. I got hit with a flashlight. That happened. So that was good. But nonetheless, moving on, I think that's really it, right? Coaching, I think overall, I would like to see a little bit more change up in terms of the Jets blitz scheme, and blitzing more often than they did instead of just rushing straight 4, a little bit more diversity. Obviously, overall, you tip your cap to Brant Boyer, and then the offense. I think they did good, a good mix of run and pass, a good mixture of end arounds and reverses, or not. I don't know if they did actually any reverses, but end arounds and jet sweeps, and even the play that I think it was Elijah Moore or Wilson that got stuffed. It was executed really well, but one guy missed the block. I forget exactly who it was, and it led to the play being completely blown up, because if you have a guy who's looping around far and you have penetration, he's have to bubble it out really far. So even if there's other good blocks, it's going to screw up the play. So I like Michael LaFleur. Salah, some questions about the timeout, the lack of a timeout before half, which I didn't necessarily agree with him. It ended up working out. I think his excuse or his reasoning was something like he didn't want to give the Browns enough time or something like that. I don't know exactly what that was. I don't remember the situation, to be completely fair. But I thought the coaching overall was fine. More, thumbs up for the offense, and defense I want to see more mixed up. And I'm always going to give them, a negative for their D-line rotations. I don't think there's any situation where all of Q, JFM, and Lawson should be off the field at the same time. It's inexcusable to me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was decent coaching. A miraculous comeback doesn't happen in 2 minutes. You probably look at it a lot differently, but they definitely deserve a lot of credit for having the team ready to make that comeback, because as much as it is the Browns making mistakes, you have to be ready to capitalize, and the Jets definitely were ready to do that. So they deserve credit. I think LaFleur, like you said, this is a good game. I think regardless of the fact that they only had 17 points prior to the comeback, they clearly, I think, we're playing better than that. And I think Flacco kind of showed that, when the protection is good and when he is playing well, kind of showed that LaFleur is opening up quite a bit. I even look back to the Ravens game, and that's not to say LaFleur was perfect. You look at the 13 personnel, the Cager stuff, Wilson, he wasn't perfect, but Joe Flacco plays an average game in week 1, offensive line plays an average game. It would have been a very respectable performance. So
For sure.
So I think LaFleur, solid game. Defensively, though, like you said, the rotation always going to be questionable. And definitely they continue to get beat by some of the same things they struggled with last year: screens, draw plays, gap runs, all that stuff. So definitely needs to be some adjusting.
Yeah.
In those areas.
But even in this game, like and recently, they've been playing gap runs better. Like to me, like just their execution and process versus results. But moving on, we'll go through the chat really quickly. We'll preview the Ravens game with lightning speed. So I do have to pack, and then again, check out Jets Talk 24/7. I will be on there in about 4 hours, talking for another 2 hours about football. So that will make it a total of about 6-8 hours of football talk today. Got to get it in before I go. Art, my man Joe, looking at T1000. I don't know what that is. I think is that a calculator? I know like there's like a T something thousand with the calculator. Let's take a robot. I'm not sure what that is, Art, but thank you or not thank you. I don't know. Maybe you can buy a new camera in Italy, Joe. Yeah, it's people credit. Where is it? It's right there. It's a scratch on my camera. I don't know how that happened, but I have a scratch. So it'll be a new laptop though, not a new camera. Let's see. Just trying to. London looking good though. Yeah, no, it's London. London looks good. Let's keep going. Jets have. Hold on. Oh, I jumped down to the bottom of the chat. That is my fault. Jets finally have weapons. Yes. What's up, Junior? I haven't seen you here before. I don't think. Corey is the fourth wide receiver on this team. It's definitely the third. But Falcons drafted London 8. Yeah, that was 8, right? And then Seahawks drafted Cross at 9.
Yep.
So they didn't have the option between. I still think they probably would have taken Wilson over London, just like my general feel. But I like London a lot too. Obviously, like London, and like he's going off now. It's like funny. Like people again look at the measurables and he's slow. He can't run routes. That's bullshit. London ran routes very, very, very well. So happy tanking, Joe. Jets win. Jets. Jets. Yeah, exciting, right? We're actually talking about a win in September. Good show, Joe and Mike. Good knowledge. Appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, did you see that where Quan pushed DJ Reed on that play where he got out and ankle bite? Yeah, so a little bit of assistance from Quan, even though he kind of fell over. So, yeah, let's see. I agree. Art Eccles played well. I'm just trying to get through all the chats. A case is falling through. No, it's about rehabilitation. It wasn't about falling through. Last year, Hall isn't good. He's decent. Yeah, decent. I think he's a decent or a bad starter, but he's not a decent backup. He's a very good backup. Art asked this again. He asked a couple of times, Nani, so I'll throw it to you. Obviously, he wasn't here for the whole time, but how has Lawson been on a snap per snap basis? We hit it a lot, but I'll give it to him.
First game, he actually, I think, had first game he had 3 pressures on 20 pass rush snaps, which is pretty good. That's actually, in terms of the percentage of his pass rush snaps where he created pressure, that's pretty much identical to the rest of his career at 15%. So I liked his first game. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty solid. Like the run defense and the discipline against the Ravens was good. And he did have some good wins. This game he had 2 on 22 pass rush snaps, which is not as ideal. It's probably about league average for an edge rusher, and I think that's accurate because one of those is the sack. Which was a good rush, although not, as you mentioned earlier, not necessarily the best that he's capable of.
Yeah,
and
technically.
And then in addition to that, he had one other play that I saw he won on. So not ideal, but we've seen plenty of games where the Jets have edge rushers who lay eggs, who have 0 pressures. So it's they've had worse, but he's definitely capable of better than this previous game.
I don't think what's the funny thing. I watched a lot of movies. I don't know if I've ever watched The Terminator. I'm just not the biggest Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. Minus I don't know what the movie is. I forget the one. Well, there's the one where the Kinder Care or whatever it is, and then there's the one where he's fighting the evil guy for the toy, whatever that is around Christmas time. Okay, fine. Other than that, I'm not the biggest fan.
I haven't seen those either, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, you're like 21, so I'm 29, so it's probably a little bit less excusable for me, but. Yeah, whatever the toy movie is and whatever Kinder Care, I forget exactly what it's called. Jets just released Ty Long and signed. So look, they bring in some competition for man. He performs and they cut him and signed that. I think that's like that receiver / returner from the Broncos is Deontay Spencer, right? They signed. They had him on the roster last week. They cut him again. Now he's back. So whatever. J Speed, does Elijah Moore look good on tape? Production, yeah, it's there. This week less than last week. Last week he was open plenty, and obviously with the pressure the defensive line was, or the offensive line was allowing, there's no way he was going to get hit. So he's been fine. Let's see. My bad, I missed the coverage earlier. Thanks for the breakdown on Lawson Nania. Kindergarten Cop. Yes, thank you, Yoshi. Okay, so let's do thoughts on the Bengals game. I don't know if you want to go like position group by position group. One, I don't have the roster up, so like overall feel, I guess we can run through their team a little bit and like general feelings about the game. I know you do I don't know if you do a score prediction on CYJ, but I don't know if you did like your breakdown or whatever. I don't know if we want to give a score. I'll give a score. Obviously, I'm not going to be here for 3 weeks, so I got to do something. But like general feel going into this Bengals game, I'm honestly surprised that I'm not really surprised. We're the Jets and they went to the Super Bowl last year, but I think we're plus like 5 or something like that, which is a decent amount for a Bengals team who has looked like, to be honest, shit this year. So
no, I mean, I think this is a good matchup, and each of the first 2 games the Jets played, there were a lot of scary aspects of those matchups. You know, the Ravens schematically, and then the Browns. The Browns a team that's very similar schematically, so that makes it more of a talent versus talent matchup. And the Browns are more talented than the Jets until proven otherwise. Specifically, when you look at their edge rushers against the Jets tackles, their interior linemen against the Jets D tackles. So those are tough matchups. But you look at the Bengals, and look, this is, regardless of their record, still a reigning Super Bowl team. And they barely lost both of those first 2 games. So not a team to be taken lightly, but matchup-wise, and we sort of talked about it earlier, this is a team the Jets are kind of built to play well against. You're talking about a team that runs its offense through its wide receivers. Well, the Jets do have a good cornerback trio for the first time in a long time. Giving up a lot of sacks. That's both on the offensive line and the quarterback for holding the ball too long. So it'll finally be an opportunity for this pass rush to just pin its ears back and go and make some plays. So the Jets are built to beat this team. I think that obviously they beat them last year with, I think, significantly less talent than they have right now, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, because we know there was this very fluky game in terms of how well Mike White played. But yeah, this is a good matchup for the Jets. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and like I'll be, and this is not revisionist history. I was probably saying this last year. The Bengals' run last year was a little bit overrated. Like you look at, they beat the Titans in a game, barely beat the Titans in a game that Tannehill was pretty dreadful. I forget who they beat in the second round. I forget their whole run, but it was
Raiders, Titans, and then the Chiefs.
Well, Chiefs, yeah, and the Chiefs blew. I remember I had so much money on that game, and then they blew like a 19-point lead or whatever it was, or something like that. I freaked out, but nonetheless, yeah, I think they're a little bit maybe overrated because they made the Super Bowl. Which again, I'm not overlooking the Bengals. Like they're still a very good team, but their offensive line is not very good. So I'm not overly concerned about the running game, even though Mixon's good. It's really again about their receivers versus our corners, which I'm relatively confident. I'm not going to say they're going to shut down the receivers. I think overall their receiver group is better than our corner group, but we have enough to at least limit them enough for our defensive line to get there versus a bad offensive line, who. Again, as people are talking about, like they made some signings this year, but like there are some signings who just do not work out. Like, and I'm not trying to trust me. You guys are like, what the hell? But like Spencer Long was not a bad player with the Redskins at the time. He came to the Jets and sucked. Like it's just sometimes it just doesn't work out. So yeah, that's good. Like their defensive line versus our defensive line versus our offensive line. Their receivers match up against our strength at corner. I'm worried about obviously Chase and Higgins and all these guys versus Whitehead and Joyner, but hopefully the Jets play with a lot of inside leverage and just force it to the sideline. I'm hoping it's more man and some blitz looks, or you can win with 4 versus team 2, but I just don't want to give them long enough to attack the safeties. Like that's my concern. And then our defense again. Well, I'm trying to think of anything really else. It's really their receivers. Burrow, we should be able to pressure them. We match up well on their receivers, and then with their defense, like they have Bates. I'm not sure how well he's been playing this year. They have dude from the Saints to the Bengals, the pass rusher.
Henderson. Yeah,
they have Von Bell, who I had a lot of clips of Conklin roasting him when they played the Vikings last year. So I'm not like there's nothing on their defense where I'm like afraid of their defense. Like they don't like you. Maybe you could consider Bates a superstar, but is he really? Like he's very good. I don't know if he's a superstar level player. Like the Ravens, like they're stacked secondary, good defensive line with a really good blitz scheme. I know that it changed, but still carried over a lot from Wink. And then the Browns had a stacked corner group, or a very good corner group, a stacked edge rush group. Like I don't see where people are terrified of the Bengals other than Joe Burrow, who hasn't been performing well. And again, your strengths match up against their strength on offense. And other than that, your defensive line should be able to take advantage of this offense. So is there anything, again, that's a pretty quick recap of kind of the game, but is there a recap of what the game to come? Do you want to give a score prediction? Do you have a general feel? Again, I don't know if you want to give it. I don't know if you have a whole thing with CYJ and in terms of not predicting until the Friday preview that they put out. So make sure to check out CYJ Pod. You guys put out a show on Monday. You put out a show on. Oh, by the way, I think you have to do it since we mentioned a couple of times. Are you able to play the reaction to the game? I know it's late in the thing, but
I don't know. I'm like slightly embarrassed by it because I sound like a complete maniac, even above what you would probably expect or have seen.
Okay, that's fine. People. That's fine. There's 156 people in here. Listen, I did just tell people that I licked sweat off my bald friend's head, so it's okay. It's okay. But nonetheless, so do you want to give a score prediction for this game, or at least maybe a feel, or who wins or loses? You don't have to necessarily say a score.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel good about the Jets winning this game with home field, and I did not think they'd win either of the first two games, at least the week leading up to it. So it's not like I'm predicting wins every week. This one though, just matchup wise, makes a lot of sense, and plus the home field. I think I don't know. Definitely don't see a blowout. It's impossible to predict that in favor of the Jets, but this is just a good matchup. And then on the defense, like you're saying, like this is a defense it's not a terrible defense, but last year it was a pretty average defense. They were 17th in terms of scoring. It's they don't have a ton of gaping holes, but they also don't have, other than Hendrickson, I guess, don't really have and maybe Bates, don't really have talent that scares you either. So it's a defense they could score on. Definitely not as scary as the Browns, that's for sure. No. This is a good matchup. I do think the Jets have a good chance to get a win this week.
I am going to say, it's the jetsiest thing is to get us all excited about a big win and then come out and get blown out at home. Like that's the jetsiest thing ever. But the Jets turning around, Nani. We're a different team, different players, different coaching staff led under Mr. Receipt Saleh. The Jets are going to win 27-23. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but they're going to win. Listen, again, I'm afraid of Burrow, sure. But again, their defense, what's to be afraid of? I'm not afraid of much. Again, Bates, okay, sure. And their offense is scary as hell. But if the Jets D-line does not produce versus this offensive line that's been struggling, and maybe they get it together a little bit more, which I'm sure they will with some, more time playing together. But still, you said what is it 14 or 15 sacks in 2 weeks? They got to get at least 4 or 5 sacks. Force Burrow to throw a pick or two. Like the first game, he threw 3 or 4 picks, and some of them were pretty bad. I know 1 or 2 of them were on the receivers, but 2 of them were dreadful picks. So a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. It happens all the time. So the Jets win 27-23. And I will not be here to watch it. My Wi-Fi is me cutting out. I'm just getting freaking updates from Jets X Factor and ESPN and all this shit. But nonetheless, I'll hit the chat for a second and then we'll jump out of here. What do you think of Davis's route running? It's good. The one dig route he had a really nice rocker step at the top of it. He's never going to be Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson, but Davis is a solid route runner. He's not a bad route runner. That's for sure. Joshua has Jets 31, Bengals 24. I don't know what the plan for the show is. Just stay tuned. It might be Kyle solo on Thursdays. Maybe Nania and Ben can step in for a show. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to stream still once a week. Maybe I'll jump in for a stream, 3:00 in the morning. I'll wake up, go take a poop, jump into a stream for 15 minutes with you guys. We'll see. With Victor, with Conklin struggling, does Uzama take? No, he's not. Conklin, yes, he's had 2 fumbles. He's, to me, a much better player than Uzama. It's very clear based on their film, and it's based on their usage in week 1. The Jets showed very clearly they like Conklin more than Uzama, right? we're gonna beat the Bengals, then get blown out versus Steelers. That would be very Jetsian, but I would still sign me up 2-2. I'm okay. And Pittsburgh's not an easy place to play. Joe Jens, what's up, Sluggo? You're very late. You're like 3 hours late. Joe is right about Spencer Long. What a letdown. I didn't think he was bad when they signed him, to be honest. Sauce versus Chase should be fun to watch. Listen, I hope Sauce has a good game, but Chase is a much superior player at this point. Let's be fair. Sauce he was very good at week 1, with a player 2 sprinkled in there where he was beat by Andrews and the ball he wasn't targeted. It happens. In this game, he was solid for a rookie, but he was not great. Bus, what's up? Jets, we're going to come off an amazing win. Bengals are 0-2. All I'm looking for is a good game. Listen, as long as they compete, I want to win. I'm okay with at least competing. But the Jets of old get blown out. Doesn't matter if it's the Falcons, doesn't matter if it's the Texans, it doesn't matter if it's the Jags. Back-to-back games after a big win like that, teams come out flat. The Jets need to at the minimum compete, right? So let's see. Yes, you are correct. That needs to be fixed. Nani, are you feeling on it there? We'll figure it out. I'm not going to put him on the spot now. We'll figure that out. It's probably going to be Kyle. It might just be Kyle. Kyle could talk to a wall for 2 hours just as I can, so he'll be fine. 27-24. I'm taking 20. Oh, you still know who? I don't know. I'm taking 27-23 Jets. Ulbrich and Salah must learn how to adjust to the zone defense when it's not working. Too much cushion. It's about passing stuff off too that people don't necessarily always realize. Like they think it's spot dropping, sometimes it's not. It's about passing it off. Let's see. When's the last time the Jets had a blowout win?
The Raiders
Lions
games, 2019.
Yeah, I'll call that a blowout. I forget
Probably
exactly.
That,
Yeah. Season of two faces. Sorry, Joe, we're gonna win. Make the right pick. Yes. I really think so. I'm tired of having a heart attack. Let's see. We should feast on these mofos. That D-line. Yeah. Okay. Lama 3 a.m. poop stream. I'm with it. Give the people what they want. Luke Grant has been down on Salah Ulbrich. I tend to agree. Salah. Do I want to see changes? For sure. I'm not going to say he's a terrible coach. Like the timeout management last game, I wasn't a big fan of. Some of the strictness in terms of zone on first and second and man on third, which I haven't charted, so I don't know if that's necessarily a tendency this year as much necessarily. But yeah, no, there's things to be concerned about. But and listen, like Ulbrich doesn't really get necessarily any excuse for last year because they were dreadful, no matter the talent on the team. But I still like Salah. Like I'm not giving up on Salah at this point. Do I think he needs to get more involved in defensive line rotations and things like that? I do. But you're also like, listen, the Sauce touchdown that he gave up, at least based on what I watched, he's a first year player starting. Like you're going to have some hiccups, We'll see if they can stack it together. Now, if they come out and they're getting blown out in more games this year. Yes. Now, after week 1, if that continued on, I'll be really pissed. But let's give them a couple more games before we call him a glorified cheerleader or being down on them. Ulbrich maybe, Salah not necessarily. How do you feel? I'm not going to say they're going to be studs. I'm still the jury is still very much out on them, but I'm not necessarily down on Salah. Maybe Ulbrich, but
no, I agree. I think we definitely still have to give it some more time, and it's definitely fair to be slightly concerned considering. The way the first year went, and then at this point, you just have to win games. Until you win games, it is fair to have that doubt because all the the good stuff you bring to the table is supposed to at some point lead to wins. So until those wins are there, then none of that really matters. So it's fair to be concerned until the wins come, but it's also it's not fair to completely bury him until you get further than 2 games into the second season. So. I really like what Salah brings to the table as a leader and CEO of the team. There are other things that need to be shown, but in terms of like a guy to be the leader of your locker room, like I don't think you could ask for a ton more.
Yeah, and listen, I didn't love the whole receipts thing, and I think it was more that he's calling out the media more than the fans. But clearly the players responded, and clearly the players, every player talked, even guys who are former players, seem to respect that quote. Like he has locker rooms back, and we might not have appreciated it, but at the end of the day, it's about winning in the locker room. It's not about the fans, really. So now, should he pull Justin Fields and criticize Bears fans? Probably not. But that's a story for a different day. Giants in 2019 wasn't that was a close game. Because I remember Jamal Adams strip sack was was like necessary, right? Or pretty close to necessary.
Yeah.
Saller and Ulbrich are tied at the hip. I don't think so. I think that Ulbrich could be let go. I'm really hoping it's not a Bulls was a Casey Rogers situation. I'm hoping. And at the end of the day, Ulbrich does have, or Saller does have final say in everything, but he's going to delegate a lot to Ulbrich. Like it's not necessarily mad. Like, oh, he doesn't have to just hit X, like he's delegating a lot so he could be the overseer of the team. If he doesn't produce, then he doesn't, it is what it is. Dave says Jeremy Rucker had a very good game blocking. I don't remember him blocking a lot or being a lot or involved a lot in blocking. Now I could be wrong again. I pretty much funneled this game. So I don't remember watching him a lot blocking. Maybe you're right, Dave. I don't know if you have any stats on that, Nania, or any watching. I don't really remember him blocking specifically.
He definitely had some reps. I think he played like 13 snaps. I don't think he was very good. I feel like I definitely remember a few shaky blocks from him. He did have some good ones. I think it was just a mixed bag more so than good.
Yeah. If you like, again, I binged it and didn't have much sleep. So like to watch every single player, you have to. It didn't take you like 20 hours, and I only had like 10. So sorry. Nani's a man with numbers. He's like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. I'm assuming you haven't seen A Beautiful Mind either. Okay, yeah, there you go. Lama, what was that about? Justin Fields tweaking. Yeah, I was not high on Fields for a lot of reasons. I don't think he has it, but at the same time, he's not being supported with the Bears at all. So that inconsistent play is coaching and game prep. It's a part of it. It's a part of it for sure. And the timeouts and some of the clock management, like we had the play in like the Giants preseason game, where the clock ran out for like 20 seconds and then he called a timeout. So there is problems with clock management with Saleh. And some of the defensive structure and how stubborn they are with either the zoner man or defensive line rotations or guys only playing certain parts of the field. But I don't think those are necessarily reasons to give up on a guy. Guys can bounce back as coaches. Like guys are bad at first and bounce back. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, etc. It happens. So I'll hit a few more questions. Like anything else that we're gonna do this lightning round because I have to get out of here. But Dave, changing a team's culture requires a different leadership than just X's and O's. Saleh has a plan, works well with JD. And his guys play hard for him at the anti-Gates. Let's not throw it in a towel. Yeah. No, I agree. It's part of it. Part of it is the culture of the team building that people overlook. Like, look at John Harbaugh. Like the guy is a special teams coordinator, and look how well he's done. Now, obviously, I'm sure he's not just special teams now, but still. Momo, Joe, what are some of the sites we can watch to break down the game like you? But great job. Appreciate that. I would recommend going to clinics or looking at clinics on YouTube. Like that's the best thing to do in my opinion. Like go watch Jim McNally break down the offense or outside zone system for an hour and take notes, and then watch it again and take notes. Then take like I've shown people like this. I'll just do this really quickly. But I have notes. I have notebooks too, but like I have notes in my phone that are from like years of watching stuff with links. And then I could always go back and refer to it or watch it again. Half of the stuff I forget, and I have to go back and see it again. But like thousands of words of notes. So it's about just consistency and like grinding to learn. I know 29 times so far. I'm not sure who you're talking about. Prep against opponents. Oh, for like the coaching staff. Yeah, again, I think part of it is not having talent. Last year was not necessarily an excuse. The run D linebacker core still concerned me big time. Again, it wasn't great last game, but you're coming off 2 games against the strongest defense or running teams in the league. So let's see how they do against some teams who are average. So let's see. Solid poor game planning, poor execution. 2 years, too many blowouts. Last year, sure. This year, let's see. Thank you to you, Coach Football. No. Fields. Okay. Nania, I appreciate everybody being in here. We had like 170 something plus people in here at a time on a Tuesday at 2:00 or whatever it was. So I definitely appreciate people again. Sorry for me being outside. Sorry for the sunglasses. Sorry for the dog barking. I know a lot of people are going to complain. I know Rich DeBow will defend us. There'll be people like 3-hour podcast. This is bullshit. It's like, you have to listen to the whole thing, So if you enjoy it, you got 3 hours. So appreciate everybody. And I'll be back in, I don't even know, October. Actually, shit. You know what? Thinking about it, Nania, I land back from Italy on a Sunday. I leave for Chicago to go to the Green Bay game on Wednesday, so I might not be able to do a breakdown
Wow.
of that game. So, you guys might see me in like 4 weeks. I'm sorry, it just is what it is. Life takes over sometimes. So, hold on. Can I address this really quickly? Shut down the Ravens run game, but not the Browns. That's bad game prep. So with good game prep, you can just overcome the best rushing attack in the league. Like, it's not necessarily that easy. Just good game prep. Like, they game prep as well. And they also have very, very good players and better. One of the best running back duo in the league and a very good offensive line has been together for a few years now. Like, you can't just say game prep. They didn't shut them down. Like, that's not necessarily a reason, but yeah. Okay. Nonetheless, appreciate all of you. Nania, last words, and then we're going to get out of here.
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to hold it down while you're gone, and when you come back, you'll have a 4-1 team to talk about.
Oh my God. I wish. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you